Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. However you happen to be watching and or listening to this, you know the spiel. I want to welcome you to the Gaming Circle podcast, the podcast where, this week we are excited because we're back. Last week we had some business to attend to. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you live in these here United States. But this week we are back to talk about all the craziness has been going on in gaming. I am, of course, your host, Mr. K. Asante, TKO Asante, on all the places we communicate, and I'm joined by my brother, my friend, the man who's gonna try and convince us of the impossible. I don't know. We'll see about that. Mr. Everborn Saga. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm doing good. Took a week off for those that didn't pick up on the reference. We both had to do taxes last week, and
indeed,
we're coming up on the deadline, and Uncle Sam needed his due, and these are the things you got to deal with.
Took his pound of flesh, all of that.
Wait a minute. Okay. I see Lucius in the chat with the slander already. Wait, we missed last week's because y'all waited to the last minute to do your taxes. Let me tell you something, Lucius. When you know that you're gonna owe at the end of the year, you do it at the very last possible minute that you have to. Okay. Let's just be clear about that, sir.
But yes,
I would have waited longer if I could.
If you could have, that's right. Oh, and by the way, for those, just a quick divergence, I run around like a chicken with head cut off to get it all done, only to find out that I had much longer to do it because in Florida,
hold
I could have waited longer.
Hold on, Kay. See?
Yes, sir.
My people come from Jamaica. My wife people come from the Dominican Republic. You come from Ghana.
Yes, I do.
You need to. I learned this. Not a lot of people understand what you mean, like a chicken with their head cut off.
Oh, wow. Okay. I understand. This is beautiful. Thank you for doing that. That is pulling my card. I appreciate that. I'm usually one of the people who does that. Now you've done it to me. Thank you. I appreciate that. So for those who don't understand the reference, when chickens when chickens are cut
at the slaughterhouse where they do the chickens, when you're going to cook a chicken when you're going to defeather it or whatever, you cut the chicken's head off, and the chicken still runs around for a little while. After it will traumatize you if you've never seen it before. It has traumatized me.
Indeed. And it's traumatized anyone who makes reference. Anyone who makes reference has been traumatized, and that's why they make that reference.
Yes. So if you're obviously a lot of Americans know this because there's a lot of American farmers and things. But if you are you're city boys like us, and you don't have that background reference, that's what it's.
There you go. And by the way, good morning for all of y'all in the morning. I hope you're enjoying your breakfast as we're talking about chickens with their heads cut off. Anyway, so again. Welcome to all the fine folks in the room, fine folks in the chat. We will be joined momentarily by some other friends. This might be one of those interesting GCP episodes, but this week it should be interesting. We're talking about End State. I thought we would talk about End State, which is a continuation of a conversation we've been having in our Discord. Which, cheap plug right at the top. If you have not thought about it, join our Discord. We have great conversations there on a daily basis. Sometimes we spend too much time in the Discord, but our wives start to look at us like we are gossipers. But that's a whole different conversation. But yes, we've had great conversations in the Discord
about. My wife calls us.
We've had great conversations in our Discord, and we implore you to come and join us. Needless to say, this is a conversation. End State is a conversation that I'm pulling from our Discord, and we will talk about it today. Not to be outdone, but like I said, we will be joined by some friends, and one of the friends who has joined our Discord, who frequents our Discord these days, and we enjoy it every time he shows up because he comes with his thoughts and his particular form of slander, which I'm learning more and more is to my liking.
Oh, we got Jensen today. Jensen,
the man with the leather jacket himself.
Okay, yes.
Game Logic. What's going on, Game Logic? Good morning. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, fellas. How you guys doing?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is a long time coming. You haven't been on in a while.
Yeah.
True. And I am trying to get out of slander. I am trying to do less.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Come on,
we
now.
appreciate
come on
slander. I need backup sometimes.
Stop it. You need backup? Get out of here with all that. Anyway. So, for the fine folks in the chat, I will say good morning, good afternoon, however you happen to be watching with us. Thank you so much for being here. Hit the like button if you have not done so already. You know we do this every week, except for last week. Things happen. It is what it is. Please, if you're not a member, consider being a member. It's how we fund a lot of some of the interesting initiatives we'll be partaking in. Mr. Everborn Saga and I can announce, I think we can announce that we will be at PAX East. So myself and Everborn we'll find ourselves at PAX. We'll see if we can cover some of the great games that we find, things of that nature. We'll also be doing PAX West. I will at least be doing PAX West. There's a lot of things coming, and a lot of your great feedback and a lot of your great support has helped fund and fuel us to continue doing what we do. Before we get started, I should also note that there is a spoiler discussion incoming in regards to South of Midnight. Now, that spoiler discussion has been held back for a little bit, specifically because I didn't want a spoiler discussion to come out and kind of spoil the sauce, because I felt like people really needed to experience some of that stuff themselves. But it is incoming. I suspect either I will drop it late this weekend or earlier next week to make sure that folks could get a chance to listen to our thoughts on it. Some of the folks were able to join us. Some of the folks were not able to join us. I'm sure the conversation will keep going, but we'll put that out there in the coming weeks. So thank you guys for all your support and all the folks who are checking it out already. So, and of course, before we get started, MJ Dark joins us with a super chat. Thank you so much, sir. We'll find out super chat. He says, "Happy Saturday, gents from DC. Catch the show later. Nintendo is the GOAT. Kojima is the GOAT. Everborn, hope you read. Oh my God. Hope you ready. Hope you ready to say ready. For Thursday? Hope you ready to say for Thursday. Okay, so what's up for Thursday?
I think he's saying ready for Thursday.
Oh, you mean the
24th
Nintendo
when the pre-orders go live.
Nintendo,
now,
yes. And we will definitely talk about that.
I have one secured from my French connection, but we do need
more than
one.
Yes.
The daughter needs one, so
you see?
I will be in Gen Pop trying to get one on the 24th as well.
There you go. Excellent. Fantastic. All right, well, let's get this thing started, ladies and gentlemen. We start this thing as we always do with some games we've been playing. Now, Everborn, I know where you're going to go, so I think I'll start with Game Logic.
I have two places to go, because there's another thing that I just put almost 40 hours into, the one we talked about last week. But we'll when we get to me.
Indeed. Game Logic, sir. We appreciate you being here. What are some games that have been keeping you busy this week?
So part of the week I was out of town on vacation down at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So I started South of Midnight while I was on vacation on the Steam Deck OLED, and I've continued playing that since I've gotten back. And I'll just give you the list. And then I've also been playing PGA Tour 2K25 and continuing to play Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Okay.
How do you feel? How are you feeling about South of Midnight so far?
I want to be careful, because I always have this incumbent need for responsibility, right? In these conversations, I won't gush about South of Midnight as if it's like game of the year. I will say it's a very strong candidate. We on enough to keep going. We do this thing called gaming superlatives at the end of the year, because I think you guys have heard my bit and spiel about my disagreement with game of the year for most Gen Pop podcasts, right? Because we just don't play, we don't play 80 something games in a year, right? So we do this thing called gaming superlatives, which is highly centered around like our personal feelings of the list of games that we've played or experienced. I will say at this point, South of Midnight is a very strong candidate to be in this category that we just call most fun game of the year. And that's where each of the hosts talks about the game that just most immersed them, or they found most enjoyable. It's not even so it's distinct and separate from our notion of like what was the best designed or implemented game of the year, or what is the most critically acclaimed game of the year, right? We do different categories for those. South of Midnight is, I don't know what it is. It can very much just be a matter of like where I am in life, or I've mentioned on Twitter how one of my favorite comics that I've read in modern times, and I know BV from the GCP Discord is a big comic books fan, was Harrow County by Cullen Bunn. And Harrow County very much treads on the same kind of southern deep south mythology that South of Midnight does. So I was familiar with like what a haint was in some of these mythological creatures that come up in the game. And so it's hitting me in a way. And also, I mean, as the splash screen says, like when you start the game, it's a game about, I can't remember exactly what the verbiage is, but it's a game about, about the human condition and recovery and dealing with tragedy. And there's also very much like for people who grew up I grew up in the Deep South. A lot of the Deep South is very much about, if you've ever seen the Jack Nicholson movie, what is the Jack Nicholson movie? Like Everything's Okay, or Robert De Niro, I'm sorry. Everything's okay or everything's fine. It's about this family that just never talks about their problems, right? And the things Hazel comes across is very much that, right? It's all these like gaining insights into like things that have happened that like no one talks about, because everybody, it's Southern politeness and Southern propriety, and you're never supposed to reveal that there's like anything bad going on in your family, and so that's hitting me in a certain way as well. From a design and implementation and mechanics thing, there are problems. Like I hate the, what do I want to call it? I guess I'll call it the stun that happens. Like when you unravel somebody, when you take on health, sometimes when you get knocked back, right? It just seems like sometimes there's like it's just a few microseconds too long that you're immobilized and can't do anything. And that frustrates the heck out of me because I'm sitting there jamming the buttons, like waiting until I'm back in recovery and can get back to combat. There are a few things in storytelling that I'm kind of on the fence about, and I almost hate to be critical because in some ways these things can be thought of as goodness. Because I talk about with Avowed especially, we've talked a lot about how part of the hook of Avowed is that it just doesn't put a lot of thick cruft in your windshield and burden your notion of mechanical baggage that you have to deal with in a video game, right? Like normally in D&D, right, there are these things, and again, Avowed's not a D&D game, but it's an analog. Normally in D&D, there's these things like, if you're a magic user, you can't use certain weapons, right? Avowed like dispenses with that. I love the fact that Avowed, like the first time that I fired an arrow in Avowed, I immediately was looking around the screen for where is my arrow counter, right? And Avowed doesn't bother you with that. So Avowed lets you get to the fun, right? And so I want to give South of Midnight credit for the same thing. But like I said, I'm just kind of agonizing and hand-wringing over it. And what I mean is, there's a lot of, I'll call them kind of plot jumps that I feel like in South of Midnight. Like if I liken South of Midnight and Hazel to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? Mm-hmm. There's continuously these things that she just takes in stride, right? Like no one's taught her how to be a weaver, right? She just picks up stuff and just starts using it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no, I often give movies and comics and like, criticism for like, look, all you guys had to do was put a one-liner in there, right? That just quickly explained it away. But there are constantly these things happening. Like she constantly discovers new things, she constantly discovers new skills, and there's no like explanation to it. But on top of that, in the narrative, she comes across things that I'm like, okay, like there's a point where yes, she gets that she's dealing with the supernatural, and yes, she gets that she's in this world, but there's a point where she just kind of takes things in stride and doesn't question them, doesn't react more strongly to them. It's just like, that's weird. And like, if there was more establishment of her character as being just somebody who would deal with like the unexpected and the unknown and not really be shaken by it, that would be okay. But you get this kind of whiplash effect where there's sometimes she reacts like really strongly, like, holy crap, what the hell's going on? What is that? Like, I can't even understand that. It's an experience that I liken to being exposed to real life horror. And an easy analog to that is the city rat metaphor, right? So the first time in your life that you see a big city rat just kind of walk across your path, right? When you've never seen one before, there's a moment in time where your mind is looking at it like you don't know what the hell you're looking at, right? And you're questioning, like, is that a possum? Is that, oh no, oh wait a sec, right? And so there's so many times that she never experiences any of those moments, right? She's just like, huh, okay, well, that's the thing. So I would just like sometimes a little bit more of that to really kind of flesh her character out. But like
you want more of a fish out of water reaction a bit with the newness of everything. You want to see her stumble and learn.
Well, I just want one or the other, right? And that's what I mean. Like sometimes you do get that, right? And then sometimes you don't. And it's not really explicable, like, what is the causality behind any of those. But in general, I love the makeup of the game. I'm deeply immersed in it. I love I hate the fact that, very likely due to the production pattern that we've seen from Compulsion, we're not likely to get DLC and we're not likely to get a sequel. This is a world that I would easily spend more time in, right? And I hardly ever I just typically can't be bothered with DLC. But I would definitely play a South of Midnight DLC. And I haven't finished the game, but I would definitely play. I'm about 50% through right now. I would definitely play DLC, and I would definitely play a sequel. But like, I love it. Despite my criticisms, like, and my criticisms are just like, because this is what we do, right? And we
criticize what we love. We criticize what we love. Absolutely, yeah. I agree with almost everything you're saying in your criticisms, and I too love it. There you go.
I really hate that, like,
that notion that you can't criticize.
Why can't two things be true? Why can't I really love a thing or really enjoy a thing or be a fan of a thing and then also criticize that thing? It's weird.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we know the reasons to that because 99% of the conversations around the space are disingenuous, but
yeah,
such is life.
But no. So Everborn, what do you think? With your time removed, I don't know. I'm thinking I might go back to it and play a little bit more, even though my backlog is still monstrous.
This in many ways reminds me of how I felt about Hellblade. Like, I really was, enamored with that world. I played it, and then I enjoyed it so much that I played it again. And it's for different reasons, but a similar thread that people had issues with how they felt about the combat, and I just thought this combat is way more involved than Hellblade. Again, they're doing different things, but what I'm saying is smaller experience immerses you in the world, tells a really interesting story. The story for them is almost the star of the show more so than the actual combat. But yeah, I agree with the idea. I had so much fun just searching for floofs. I really enjoyed the platforming. Now, again, there's things that I think that they could have worked on. For example, the chase scenes. This is my least favorite part of the game. I realize now that I could turn those off, and in hindsight, I would turn them off. Because,
I just want to mention, I have literally never seen the fog.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
I heard it and I was like, nah, bro, we're GTFOing. Like,
we out, right? Exactly.
Right. But so I want to know what you think about this, Logic, because this was my critique of the chase scenes. One, I play a lot of 2D platformers and platformers in general, and a lot of them have chase scenes. And again, I love the traversal in this game, but one of my issues with the chase scenes is that you could stop. Like, it seems like you're gonna get out of there, but right now, if she stops, you could stop, look around, and it'd take you a while before they just said, okay, the level's over, the thing got you. What a better way to present this idea is maybe one, like you have to just get it perfect, and that gives you that sense of tension, because that's what a chase scene is for. So like you put kind of difficult obstacles. I understand it's like not like a big AAA thing, so maybe the set pieces they wanted to cut back on. But from a presentation perspective, I'd like for them to show me the fog destroying everything behind me, so that I know if this thing gets me, it's game over, right? I just never felt the tension other than they're telling me. So this is like breaking the rule of show don't tell. And they're telling me this thing's gonna get me, but I never saw that, so I didn't feel it. And again, this just meant I gotta go forward, not really an obstacle that I have to get exactly perfect, or I'm gonna be destroyed by the thing that's destroying the environment behind me.
I mean, a few points, I guess. Number one, the first thing you mentioned, like the traversal, I feel like people aren't talking about the traversal enough, and I think that's because, and maybe this is part of the fault of the chase scene as well, is like the traversal, like how well you use and immerse yourself in the traversal is very optional. There's I don't know that there's an imperative or a demand, right, for you to really use the traversal to its fullest extent. But what is there is very good, and I think largest point for me is it has, I think, the best wall running in a game.
Yeah, with the because there's verticality to it, right? You can move up and down.
I
That's right.
Wall running in most games when you're constantly losing altitude. It's like managing altitude in an aircraft, right? Like you're constantly under this state of where altitude is constantly depleting, and there's no way for you to correct for that, right? It's just a really frustrating mechanical aspect of most wall running. So I love the fact that you can just simply run, like vertically move up and down, using the right analog stick. And to be quite honest, I haven't taken the time to process the chase scenes as thoroughly as you have, Everborn, and I think that's largely just because when they happen, I'm just scared. So
that's right. You just peace out.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, I have seen a point where I have like lost momentum or like didn't do a run like when you do a run imperfectly and you die during the run, I believe the fog does gain on you a little. So I have hit a point in a chase where like the tendrils of the fog were like on the screen, right?
Okay.
Reaching out and looking like they were going to overtake me. By the same token, it could also be a matter of times when you know maybe you're just too good at it. And what I mean by that is I hit the first chase scene where there are those kind of sticky brambles in your way. And I actually did that chase scene perfectly. And I was very surprised. I was like, this is not normal game logic. Like normally that's something that I just dork up. Like, but I just did a perfect run. But in the aftermath of that perfect run, like I did have this moment where I was like, oh man, that was really easy. Like, or I'm really good. Right. So there may be a bit of stakes, right? We've talked a lot this week about stakes. There may just be a bit of what you're feeling that there aren't enough stakes in the chase scenes. And yeah, I could see how that would be an issue. It just hasn't personally hit me that way.
Yeah, a good example of when I consider a fulfilling chase scene is what they did in the Ori games. So when you fight a boss right before or right after you beat that boss, they're chasing you and you have to run away from it, and you kind of have to use all the tools that they've taught you up until that point, and you can't F it up or you got to start over. And that sense of tension and subsequent sense of accomplishment when you get through that chase scene, it's almost like your heart's pumping. You're like, whoa, I made it. And I when I think of chase scenes, and that's just one example, but that's what I hope for. And again, this is a way, if we ever did get a sequel or whatever their next game is that includes a chase sequence, I'd like them to add more, as you said, stakes or as I'm saying, tension to it, and show me why I should be so afraid of this thing. Anyway, it's a small thing, but one thing I hope that they look at.
Yeah, and back to your comment about why can't we criticize a thing? One of the things that this game has made me think about is how unfortunately, because of console warring and platform bias and confirmation salves that people need, like I said, 99% of the time when we're having these conversations, we've really lost in the gaming discussion this notion of when we used to talk about games that were their strong point was story, right, versus mechanics, or their strong point was mechanics versus story. Like we've lost a bit of allowance for that.
Thank you. Preach, good sir. I have been on that thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
Logic. I just want to, I just find it curious that this is the game that we lost it on, right? Because a lot of people completely understood Amicia wasn't going to be she was a 16-year-old girl who debutante who got caught up in this whole thing during the whatever happens in that story. I don't want to spoil it for people, but you knew the combat in that game was sneak around. If they see you, you got to start over, and you can use your slingshot on occasion. But people were comfortable being engrossed in the story. And now this one, who has very serviceable combat, it becomes the whole discussion.
My really trying to avoid this. My pushback to that is I don't think this is the game that we lost it on. I think we lost it a while ago. I hate to throw shade, but I will say we have members of our community who have been clipped on another podcast going on and on at length about how PlayStation dudes, as they termed it, don't like game mechanics, but just like cinematic cutscenes and QuickTime events. So I think there's been a lot of commentary where, again, because of platform bias and healing salves and people wanting to prop up their platforms, the conversation has been disingenuous, and you can't get to a realistic conversation of like, this game does these things well, this game does these things not as well, but it's a great game because the story's awesome, or the mechanics are awesome, or because it gave me an emotional kick. There was a commentary running around Twitter this week that I pushed back on, where this person is another big influencer, talked about we've peaked on graphics and it's time for us to realize that graphics are the most important things in games, and I just have a personal huge problem with that. I think there have been some very big influencers / journalists, Ryan McCaffrey in particular, made mention of 60 frames per second is concern trolling, and I'm like, you guys talk about you guys are consumer advocates, so don't advocate for the people who like your platform, and then marginalize those of us who are also consumers and have concerns, and say that our concerns aren't valid. I'm kind of like, how dare you? I'm a PC gamer. I spend a great deal of money on high performance equipment. My norm that I want out of a game is for that game to perform at very high settings in the mid 90s to 100 teens frames per second, without me having to spend a lot of time dorking around when I have it on a high end system. When I have it on one of my lower end systems that I have for testing scalability, okay. But like the meatball for me is mid 90s to 100 teens, and when a game doesn't do that, that's a problem for me. Again, right, and I'm not the only person, right? So again, I'm kind of like, how dare you tell me that my consumer concerns are less important than other people's, right? So I mean, because of that dialogue, we lose a lot of the nuance. But this is a game where may have imperfect combat, but I think the combat is pretty good. I think it gets into that zone that I personally like, where like there's fluidity and there's kind of acrobatics. I think some of the enemies kind of have a little bit of a cheat code. Like Two-Toe Tom, look, F that mofo. Like some of his attacks, because of the size of the screen that he and his attacks take up, just got a little ridiculous for me. I will say I love. Normally I hate little helpers, but I love Crouton, and adding Crouton to the dimensionality of the combat to me is huge.
Oh yeah, well you can have somebody working for you.
Yes.
So like you find the biggest guy on the screen.
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
And then the late game became wait till the big monster shows up, and he's not gonna be first. So I'm gonna hold on to Crouton until he shows up, and then he becomes my helper.
Yeah. And when you add that dimension, right, then there's a huge. Obviously, it's not a Souls game, right? But there is a ballet and orchestration to your combat where you're constantly checking that upper left-hand corner countdown timer, cooldown timer on your different capabilities. To manage those throughout combat. That's one gig of combat that I don't like is the maybe it's not. I think I figured it. I invested in it. There is an aspect of like making a build out of your character to a certain extent. And I invested in one of the 80 foof like skill tree blips. Instead of just progressing down the regular ladder that you're kind of incentivized to. So I grabbed the I forget what it's called, but there's this ability where you reach your hook, your weaver hook out, and grab an enemy from a distance and pull them towards you, and then strike them, and that does a huge amount of damage. So I did that at first, and so I didn't have a lot of the lower level abilities that may have. So I had a big kind of devastating attack, but not a lot of the little smaller attacks. So it's just an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I'm having a huge amount of fun with the game.
Yeah,
overall.
Another one of my favorite things where instead of a parry, there's something from the ability tree that you can unlock. If you dodge in time, it'll kind of effectively work as a parry because it will weave up the enemy for a couple of seconds.
Stuns up the enemy and weaves them up.
Or focus on someone else. And so another thing I loved about the combat is that you cannot stay still, right? It's very chaotic in that way that doesn't matter if you are on the offensive, never stay in one place for too long because someone is going to come hit you and you always have to be moving. And so to me, this is a weird way to say it. I don't think Hazel's combat is the issue. I think the lack of variety in enemies became the issue for me because there are only 6 enemy types, and once you know who they are and you know how to deal with each one, and again the different pairings of them will change how you do the dance, but I think if you had more enemy variety, it would give you an opportunity to do more thinking on your feet, and that's the part of the combat that I really engaged with. Just so every time there was a new enemy, finding out what's the best way to deal with him while dealing with the others was the fun of it. But after they introduced all 6, I'm like, all right, who's it going to be this time? So again, future note for compulsion is let's have more enemy types, because I think a lot of people that are having the issue and calling it repetitive, this does a lot that in terms of the different abilities you can unlock and how you change it. So it's not that her moveset is too limited, right? It's not that you don't feel the impact from the hits, right? It is just that once you're introduced to these enemies, that's all she wrote.
I gotta say, I love this traversal mechanic when they start letting you just fly across the world. I love that. Oh man, like I was seeking that out whenever possible. It's just so good. By the way, I agree with all your takes so far. The only thing I would add as well is like if we're adding tips to the feedback jar, I would also adding the worlds into adding the enemies strewn throughout the world itself rather than isolating them. Right? Exactly. That would have also really, really like allowed you to think on your feet. You know, I really like the criticisms you had on it, Logic. I also think that a criticism that I have of that kind of what the combat is doing or the way that people could potentially perceive the combat is that while they tell you, and I've said this before, while they tell you what you should do in picking up the floofs and that will make your combat dynamic and all of that, they only mention that to you, say once or twice, And if you don't go about the job of playing this game like Crackdown and literally seeking out those floofs, what you end up with is a game where, as Everborn says, has limited limited enemy scope, right? But also each of the different combat types that you unlock helps you be more optimized in taking care of those different types of enemies. So if you don't even get enough to start unlocking those, now you're really like, it becomes tedious. I can see it becoming tedious. So I would say, for future reference, for if they were planning on doing this, which, you know, as Game Logic has already pointed out, historically they have not gone back to DLC or a part 2. But if that were to ever be in our midst, I would appreciate it if they would consider looking at game testing it with people and seeing if maybe there's benefit to changing the way you get XP, right? Like rather than tying it solely to the floofs, maybe tie it to another mechanic that you gain inherently by exploring, something like that, rather than seeking things out specifically. It might help get people more invested in that combat grind. But otherwise, exactly like Logic is saying, and as Everborn himself has also said, I love this game. I love it. I think the game needs to exist. Yes, I will throw the superlatives at it. I think it is one of the best games I've played in a long time. I love it. It's a vehicle for delivering this epic, impactful story. You know, I'm always that kind of person that says, you know, gaming has matured, and I need to be able to prove its maturity. You know, just like TV and books and all of that, and all these other avenues, all these other genres that are allowed to live in it. This game is what I will show you when you say, hey, show me that gaming has matured, right? This is a delivery vehicle for impactful storytelling. Yes, the gameplay is not as prioritized as that impactful storytelling, which we can criticize, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that this is an amazing game. So that's my opinion on it as well. Mr. Everborn Saga, go ahead. I'm sorry, please.
Just a couple of things. I mean, one thing I want to give a little cushion for compulsion is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe, you know, without actually, like, you know, counting function points and lines of code, right? I believe this is the biggest game Compulsion has done.
Probably, yeah. This is their biggest impact,
especially in terms of complexity. So, I mean, I want to, you know, I was in an argument with somebody on another podcast saying, you know, Oblivion needed to level up as a result of the acquisition, and I'm like, no, like, just because a company's studio's acquired, it's fine for them to stick to their guns and stick to what they know and their comfort zone, and not allow themselves to be overwhelmed. You know, needing to
please Double Fine, don't turn into a AAA studio.
Right. I mean, one of the key elements is in the industry is, you know, the constant need to level up is one of the things that you know, kills the industry and takes studios down at their knees. One thing that Everborn mentioned that was an epiphany for me, because I didn't realize that I am huge, partly because of things that I have done in the real world. I'm a huge fan in games when there's an imperative to manage battle space. That's just a key thing that that harmonizes with my gameplay style and the way I think very well. And what Everborn mentioned about the constant need to move, because I didn't even realize it with the game, and now I realize that, so that's a hot button that it's clicking on, right? Is that when you get in those arenas, right, there is a need to manage battle space, right, in terms of, you know, where you are, where the enemies are, where you think you're going to maneuver next, making, you know, clearing space out so that you can access that space, and so on and so forth, and constantly going through that OODA loop. So I really enjoy that. And then one comment somebody made in the chat saying, you know, you have to unlock the things in order. So my comment confused them. That is true for the left side of the skill tree. You can access that right-hand side of the skill tree whenever you want. And I think maybe you have to do the right side in order from left to right. But like I said, I went to the right side of the skill tree, and I saved up 80 floofs without unlocking anything on the left-hand side. And the first skill I unlocked was on the right-hand side of the skill tree. So those left and right in that order and chronology are discrete functions, and so you can access them separately. So in those terms, you don't have to access them all in order.
There you go.
I mean, you get on any individual tree, yes, you do. But the left and right side trees are separate and discrete.
So we're going to move on from South of Midnight, but again, I will say that there will be more coverage of South of Midnight from us. We have a spoiler discussion where we want to get into some of the nitty gritty of the storyline. I know Everborn, you weren't able to join that because time wasn't able to permit, but we will, I'm sure, double back and have more conversations, specifically storyline related, as more and more folks get a chance to play it. I really do think it's a spoiler worthy discussion that is worth having. I'll leave it off by saying I think this character needs a more chance to shine. I hope we see her again in some way, shape, or form. If if it's locked here and that's it, I'd say that's a very missed opportunity. I think this was a great character moment, and this character should be seen elsewhere or have more chance to shine because it's a great character. So yeah, there's that.
I am trying to let you move on, TK, but I do want to say I am just not a person who is emotionally moved by video games. I don't have a lot of those stories of this character,
sure.
blah, blah, like it's just not me. I'm very much more so a mechanical guy.
Yeah,
this story hits me,
sir, and I feel you.
We're not talking about a lot of it, like in order to avoid spoilers, man. But let
me ask you quickly. What chapter are you on, sir?
I'm wrapping up chapter 6. So like I said, I'm right about a little less than halfway through.
Okay.
I'm gonna warn you now, Logic.
Chapter 11 turned me into a blubbering idiot.
Yep.
Chapter 11, I put the controller down, I stepped away, tears were in eyes. I had to move on. I had to come back later. Chapter 11 was powerful. Anyway, let us move on because we have a lot more to cover today. Yes, but there you go. If you are secure in your manhood to cry on a video game, go play yourself some South of Midnight. It's that. Everborn Saga. Oh, actually, before I even move on to Everborn Saga, Game Logic. Any other games at all that you want to discuss before we move forward? So.
Like I said, not ones we need to go into a ton of detail.
Okay.
On vacation, I started. I can never put together the name of this. Something. Daybreak Trails to Daybreak 2 or whatever. I started that on vacation.
Sounds like people just pick out words from the word soup and go, "There's our game."
I need to get back to it, but mostly because South of Midnight is such a story deep and immersive story. Most of the other things I've been playing are just purely mechanical. Like I said, I've been playing a lot of PGA Tour, 2K25, and Black Ops 6.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Before we continue, now let you speak on an Everborn Saga. Let's catch up on a couple super chats that have popped in here. The great JD Gamer joins us. What's going on, JD Gamer? Hope you're doing well this morning. He joins us with a $5 super chat. And he says, I like this game, and they gave the soundtrack, the lore, a little bit, a bit in Sinners. Yeah, actually, there's a thought about that too. It's good you remind me. I've heard the folks who watch Sinners have tied it a lot of. There's a lot of lineage, little tie-ins to South of Midnight, more story similarities than anything else, or world building similarities. But yeah, people who have seen Sinners say, "Oh, it's a lot of South of Midnight vibe in it as well." So that's pretty cool call out. They made attention about Haints, which is also in Sinners. Yes, I hope y'all get. I hope we all get a sequel a la Path to the Master Weaver. Yeah. Yeah.
Did anyone in the Sinners movie explain bottle trees? And what
did anybody show up? Did anybody show up and go, "Who is this for?" No, I'm sorry. Let's just keep it moving. Slow backslap with a $5 super chat. He says, "Pay attention to the kind of games some of these games media people choose to nitpick, and which games they choose not to." Now, he didn't add it in, but I will add those 2 eyeballs. The real big eyeballs that look after that statement. Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in here, throwing some facts on the matter. We appreciate you. Everborn Saga, sir. How about you? I know you have some games you want to talk about. Where you want to go first?
Yeah. All right. First, I would like to start with a game called Twilight Monk.
Twilight Monk. Okay.
Yes. This is a 2D Metroidvania. It's out on Steam now. This is why I played it.
It's like this has become Everborn Saga's like his suit that he wears. The 2D Metroidvania. Fantastic. Keep going.
Yes. Big surprise. I got caught up with, and I'm gonna check right now. I have how many hours do I have in this game?
And the funniest thing about this is I probably have more Metroidvanias in my library than you do. So you and I connect on Metroidvanias.
Yes. Now, I'm 30 some odd hours into the game, nearing 40. Okay. So 32.6 hours I've got on record in this game. I completed
now, explain what we're looking at here. What is this? What is this? What
we're
is the
looking at Ariel's? Oh, I'm sorry. We're not looking at Ariel. We're looking at
get the lawyers ready.
This character's name is Raziel. This is from an American developer. He used to work for Blizzard and several other big name companies working on AAA games. He decided to make his own game. And what he came up with, he also released a novel in 2019 based on this world. And this is an RPG. It has an RPG overworld, but it is a Metroidvania. And so when you're in the overworld, if you get into a random battle, it'll take you into something like this, like a side-scrolling thing. But it is ultimately a Metroidvania. The only issue with that I have with that, because I think it's a cool concept, having the overworld and battles you can get into, it's very hard to know where you're going, because there's an overworld map that just shows, okay, you're in this region and that region, but then you actually have to travel to the region and enter a door.
Real quick, Dr. Dry Rub is going crazy in the chat. Dr. Dry Rub, I love saying this man's name, and he is dropping a bunch of Steam codes in the chat. If you happen to catch one, thank the man. Thank you, Dr. Dry Rub. This is awesome. He's throwing a bunch of Steam codes in the chat. Dry Rub, always appreciate you, brother. Continue, sir.
Yeah, it's a very fun game. There's a lot of abilities you can get. He doesn't use a sword. He uses a hammer with a chain that he can throw it at people, but you can add different talismans that will give you certain buffs and then certain ability. And so the talismans, they can give you buffs, but they can also give you abilities. So for example, you can drop that hammer, and this is another thing, they use the hammer in very interesting ways. You can drop the hammer on the floor and then stand on it in order to get to higher places, right? You can also obviously use the hammer to break walls that are like false walls. But if you add a certain talisman, once the hammer is on the floor, you can actually kick it and then do really high damage, and then it'll come back to you. And then you can add a talisman, a secondary talisman, to where if you kick it again while it's coming back to you, you can juggle it, right? And then that kind of creates this knock-on effect of taking more and more damage away. And think of the hammer like Kratos's axe. So you throw it, and then if you need to put it down to kind of get through a door or something like that, you can call it back. So you drop it with Y, and then you can call it back with Y again.
Mr. Slow-mo backslap in the chat, twisting the knife.
No, listen.
Go ahead, explain it for those who don't know. Go ahead, explain it.
Well, no, don't let me explain it. I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link. But if you go to everbornsaga.com right now, there's a character there, our main character, that our world revolves around, named Ariel. He also has a red scarf with a rope for a belt and very blue baggy pants with metal gloves and boots. The only difference is instead of carrying a big hammer, he carries a big sword. And instead of having white hair, he has black hair.
Yes.
Now,
interesting.
Yeah. If you go to everbornsaga.com right now, which again, we released the first Ariel's World game in 2015, you will see a character that looks very similar, almost like the character that is in my avatar right now speaking.
Yeah, actually, yes. Actually, if you pay a little attention, you will see that character right there.
Now, in our world, that is Ariel that you're looking at, and in this world, who you're looking at with the white hair on the screen is Raziel.
Yes, our detective is using his binoculars to
yes. But aside from the potential copyright,
aside from the lawsuit, yes, go ahead. Yes,
this is a very good game, and I highly recommend it. And that's an example of you adding sort of abilities that you can unlock as you progress through the game. So now you just got the double jump, and then you'll get the dash and the roll and all these things. So I like very, very good. No, but I do like that aside. This is I had
all the Everborn ninjas. Let's go.
And I could not put it down. I no life this thing until it was over. What's
the length of time of this game, sir?
I did it in 32 hours, but
Okay.
I think you can probably get it done in 15 or 20.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Time,
so it's not really like a huge like production. It doesn't take that long to
correct.
Get done. Okay.
Correct.
Excellent.
But again, Dr. Dry Rub
he is like prolific, man.
I might need that one for myself.
This man is, come on now. Yes.
So yeah, Everborn's Metroidvania of the week is
indeed.
Twilight Monk. I highly recommend this thing, and I would also like to point out you can go check it out. Windows Phone 2015 is when Ariel was first introduced to the world.
There you go.
But
real quick, hold on, because Dr. Dry Rub reminded me, and thank you, Dr. Dry Rub, and we will continue saying your name because that is your name. I'm sorry, I'm a man, baby. Anyway, because he reminded me that with his wonderful generosity, I was reminded that because we weren't here last week, we did not get to do this thing. So I need to do this thing right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the wonderful, the great, who I don't know if he's in this chat, but if he isn't, I will send him a message because whether this later. The great Rave Deimos here right now is a South of Midnight code for those who are able to grab it. It is a code for Xbox. It is a code that gives you access to the Xbox Series version and obviously the PC version as well. It is for the Windows Store version. Shout out to Rave Deimos for hit me up in the DMs and go, hey man, I love this game. Pass it on. And that's what he did. So here it is. Whoever gets it, shout out to him. Right? Thank you so much. Continue.
Okay, so yeah, the art style is really fun. The combat is very strong. That's just by the way, the developer's name is Trent Canny. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna just copy it because I'm gonna ruin his name, and
don't disrespect the man by ruining his name.
Yes.
Hit us with the title of this game. What's it called again?
This is Twilight Monk.
Twilight Monk.
And the guy's name is Trent. You guys read it in the chat because I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. But I will tell you this: character design aside, and this it's not easy to get a hold of this person, but I'd love to work with him.
Trent Kanuga?
Yes.
I did my best. I apologize, Trent.
Credits all over.
Yeah. Excellent. That's awesome, man.
All right.
I will definitely be giving this game a shot. It is not a game that I'm playing, but since you've spoken so highly of it, and it is my catnip, Metroidvania. Let's go. Yeah, I will. You might hear me talk about this soon enough as well. So there you go.
Yes, and awesome. I do want to forewarn people though. Again, A for effort with the top down mixed with side scrolling. But it does make it very kind of difficult to know where you are because sometimes the whole tried and true thing of a Metroidvania is you can go and look back at the map and know where you need to go.
Yep.
And maybe
this one doesn't
come across
as well.
Something that requires you to have an ability that you don't have yet, but then you go back, you mark it on the map and go back to it. You can't really do that here because it's the overworld map, and when you're in the overworld, that's all you see. And I can't have a holistic view of the side-scrolling maps until I'm in that area, and that's what it's limited to. there is no overall sort of Metroidvania view of the map. And I think that holds back from exploration. So I don't really go back to places unless I can remember them. And so that's one thing from a map design perspective that I'd critique about this game. But
Understood. Well, okay, I know what you're here to regale us as far as conversations, as far as the game that has taken your life. So how about we get to that right now? The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so I did not expect this, but the current game that I am no-lifing is. Whoa, wait a minute! I see Sycamore put a code in the chat. I don't know what it's for.
Oh, what's the code for, Syc?
You will get that surprise.
What's the code for, Syc? Let us know.
So the game that I'm going to talk to you guys about next is Game of Thrones King's Road. Now, one thing I'll say about this game, it is currently available in early access. It is on Steam as well as mobile.
Oh, and he says the game is Greek Memories of Azure. One of the great. I love that game. Oh, so good. If you got that, you are lucky. Like a game about two brothers, a brother and a sister, and they both have different power. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That's an excellent game. If you got that, and he put another code in the chat too. So there you go. Multiple times you have an opportunity to get it. If you have that, shout out to that man. That's an awesome game. Shout out to you.
Also, I'm gonna do this. There's a bug right now in this game that they don't allow gifting in the Steam store. It's one of their known bugs. They're going to fix that. So I will be, hopefully by next week, whenever they fix that, giving out a code to this game. But this is the character creator. It's very basic. I didn't do it because it was so basic. So I just took the default character design. I chose a knight. Now, this is an open world action RPG. It is single player with co-op elements. It is so
1 second. I know you love this game, and I know you're gonna try to convince us. Let me tell you real quick, right? And you and I have had this chat, but real quick for the audience listening, right? My take at when we saw this was, it looks interesting because it's Game of Thrones, which is an IP I love, but it also looks very like graphically like old school to a point where it might kind of hold me back from wanting to invest my time into it. Now, you are now addicted to this thing. You love this game, right? And some of the things that held me back, we've discussed. So with that in mind, as we were discussing before, it seems like some of the stuff that was holding me back might hold others back. So with that in mind, explain what this game is and why people might want it.
Well, right off the top, is this a game as a service?
And shout out to Logic real quick for gifting 5 memberships. Shout out to you, good sir. Thank you.
I don't even really want to call it an MMO because it's primarily a single player experience. But it is, right? It's an ongoing game. There's no like end in sight. It is designed there are battle passes, there are those other things, but it's not like a multiplayer thing.
I would say before people can pull out the pitchforks, because the chat is already coming for you. I'd say hold up. Let's hear the pitch. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is a fully realized Westeros open world game. When I say open world, I mean any place you look, you can go to. There are always things happening, and they use the different castles like Castle Black or Winterfell or King's Landing or the Reach. Those serve as sort of hub worlds where you'll see other players, but you're going on a journey by yourself, right? Where co-op comes in is not throughout the whole world, but when you pray at a weirwood tree, it becomes sort of a dungeon, like a raid, and you can go to those with some matchmaking And even then, it is random, although you can pick who you want to go with you. So that's the only sort of multiplayer dealing with other people aspect of it. It truly is a single player experience. It is there's some things in there that are designed to kind of get you to spend money for convenience, but nothing that you can't do on your own. And I'm going to explain that later. The game also has multiple different currencies that you would use for different things. So there's different currency for upgrading your gear versus buying a weapon versus things like that. And I'll come to that. But I want to, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the mechanics, the monetization mechanics or whatever, I want to explain what it is. Think if you had like The Witcher, but in a Game of Thrones setting, right? Meaning the world is filled with monsters, it is filled with all the lore, and they use the likeness of everyone from the show as well as the soundtrack, right? So you really feel fully immersed in that and it fits well within what we know from the books and the show, right? So the tone of the story is what you would expect from a Game of Thrones thing, meaning people die, there's dark decisions, there's politics where I'm a knight and I start out as a bastard of I think it's I can't remember the house name, but I'm a bastard. My father's on his deathbed and he wants to name me as heir to his house, but he's a vassal house sworn to Lord Roose Bolton, who at this point in the game where you enter the game, Robb Stark as well as Ned Stark are already gone, and the Boltons have been named as Warden of the North. So you hate them, you are loyal to the Starks, but now you need him to put his seal on this writ from your father, naming you a bastard heir to his house, and that needs to be recognized by King's Landing, which means you got to go see Cersei and Tommen the King at this time, right? That is where they drop you into the game, and then everything is happening around that. So it is an action RPG, right? It has a full skill tree. You do get a horse that works much like the horse in any Zelda game. You whistle for it. It comes from seemingly nowhere, and you can travel throughout the world. Again, very grim dark. The acting is top notch. Sometimes you have to question, did they actually get Kit Harington, or is that just someone doing a Kit Harington impression, right? These are the kind of things they do in the game.
I will tell you, I can tell it's a Kit Harington impression, but it's a good one.
This is what I mean. So they, but it definitely looks like him. And so you've got this world, and again, it does scale across mobile, and I'm playing it on PC. I've played it on the handheld. You can get it to run at 60 on the handheld. It should, right? If it's going to run on a mobile, it should run on your handheld. But also, I'm playing it on the big 4090 that's connected to the TV. It is an early access game, so there are some issues. For example, when I want to go into a crafting menu or a fast travel menu or things like that, or a skill tree menu, I have to pull out the mini mouse to kind of click on things. If you're playing on handheld, you can just tap the screen, but there are some issues with controller in the menu. Other than that, controller works really well. Combat, really engaging, right? Meaning you can upgrade your combo system. So you start with a basic 3 or 4 hit combo, but then you can upgrade those things. And then there's a skill tree to unlock new skills. And then there's an upgrade tree to upgrade the skills you've already unlocked. So there's a lot of complexity there. As I said, there's also sort of praying to the weirwood trees, and then your house is in shambles. So you have to do some town management, and these are all things that you can engage with if you want to, right? And the main narrative is very strong. You really feel like you're in an episode of the show. And the side quests, they've all been interesting so far, very grim dark. I'm talking about You have tax collectors that because the Boltons are not allowing any game to be hunted, where normally the commoners could hunt things like rabbits and things like that, while the rich folk could hunt things like elk and all that. But so now the commoners are starving, and because that's outlawed, if you get caught doing it, the Boltons are going to have you flayed. So there's a guy who is son, and so that what that means is the commoners can't eat, and so a guy's son is hunting some rabbit so that the family can eat, and then the Bolton soldiers, they kill him, and you got to just get the body back, right? There's nothing you can do to them because you haven't gotten your seal from the Boltons yet. So you are now, anything you do to them is risking the favor that you need from them. And it's that kind of thing that you kind of have to deal with and manage. So some things you watch, other things you say, I'm not going to let you get away with this, right? What you're doing to these people, but now I got to kill you, because if anybody finds out that I help these people, then that's going to ruin my ask of the Boltons, right? So it's that kind of thing. It's very dark. You're in the world. It is expansive. Here's some of the combat that you can see, and this is the opening thing. You get way more abilities than this, right? But just to give you an idea, it's like, I know people call this no, you do not need to see the show first. You do not need to see the show first. So
Everborn,
yes.
I
And
while
again,
you were
guys,
chatting
ask
about
questions, because
it, yeah. So this is why I bring this up. While you were chatting about this, right? I happen to be on the Steam page and I'm looking at it, and for those in the United States, I don't know why I say it like that all the time. For those here, the starter pack for this game is $24.99, and the ultimate pack is $89.99. It currently stands at a mixed review on Steam. And while you were talking about it, the first review, the top not recommend review, and the person got an early access code to review it. He put 71 hours into his game, and his ultimate. And I want to give you his take, and then have you give me what your thoughts are of it. His ultimate take on it is: if you are a completionist, then you need to avoid, because you'll only be frustrated. As a solo game, it's lost its way when it's trying to be an online co-op and trying to suck you into microtransactions with needless click here and click there, then locks you locks you out of content some 50 plus hours in, forcing you to repetitively grind the same random things, grind things for random rewards that don't help you prevent trying them again for 3 hours. Just don't make sense for a solo game, and as such, I cannot recommend this. He says if it is a genuine, if it had genuine co-op and online MMOs, he would understand. But since it's a single player game in all the sense of the word as far as gameplay and story, he doesn't understand why the lock-ins, and it makes it frustrating. So what do you say to that?
Okay, so what he's talking about is the RP system, and I've come up on this. And again, one thing that you need to pepper what I'm saying with a little bit of salt is that I am only 10 hours into this game, and many of these kinds of games, they will start off very strong to kind of get you hooked, and then when you get into it, when you get into that 60-hour mark, 80-hour mark, 100-hour mark.
So what Everborn Saga is telling me to do right now is to watch one of these amazing TV shows only to be disappointed by the cliffhanger. Is that what you're telling me, sir?
Yes. Right.
Oh, man.
But again, I've seen a little bit of it, but it hasn't been egregious. But again, I'm only early on. So what he's referring to is the RP system, right? Now, you can go anywhere and do anything, but if you fight enemies that are too strong for you, you're going to get one-shotted and you won't be able to complete your missions, right? And so what happens is I right now I got to meet Roose Bolton, and he wants me to handle something for him before he does a favor for me, right? So I can go there right now, but my RP, which is basically your experience level, I don't know why it's called RP. See, this is what I'm saying, right? It is a black hole game, but they hide it so well, right? And I'm going to explain why now.
In other words, stay far away from it, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
That sounds like a dangerous proposition. I'm sorry.
But here, because it's very single player focused, right?
Yes.
And so now they have this story, and they're going to unveil new stories as it progresses, right? And right now there's the North, which is like Winterfell, the Wall, and you can, so far the story takes you into the Reach and King's Landing, right? The Riverlands and King's Landing, but it will go further than that, right? But that's where the story is now. And again, I do want to stress, this is early access, and they've actually addressed some of the RP concerns, which I'm going to highlight now. And they've reduced some of the costs to do these things. So your RP, think of it, Erodimus says role points. I think that's what it means. Basically, think of it as experience points, meaning you are not strong enough to take on the enemies in a certain area of the map. And if a quest takes place in that area, or side quest takes place in that area, you will be, well, hold on. I do want to be clear. This game, when it is in full release, will be free to play. It is $25 for the standard Founders Pack now, which gives you some perks. But when it is officially released, it is a free to play game. So if I saw that Lucius had that concern. Now,
so you're literally being a beta boy pay pig by buying this in early access.
There's literally things like in the menu that like don't work, like the left cursor controlling that you got. So I'm fully warning everyone of that. But what I'm saying here is, if I go on that mission right now for Roose Bolton, I better be really good or I'm going to die. But when he first sent me, I had 6,500 RP, and the recommended RP is 8,600. And so I went to go do it, and like these small guys were not one-shotting me, but two-shotting me, right? Now, what I had to then do is say, all right, I can't just mainline this thing. I need to go do side quests, right? And when I'm doing the side quests, they've all been very engaging. Or I could go on some of the raids that they offer, right? Or they have these other thing called memories. So if you find a certain tree out in the wild, you can go, and it'll be like waves of enemies that you have to defeat until the memory is complete, right? Because they'll basically throw you into like an old battle in Game of Thrones lore history. So what I'm saying is there's many systems that you can engage with, and then that will now level up your experience points or RP, and then you'll be strong enough to go on that quest, right? Now,
those are what people are saying. They can be grindy.
Well, here's the problem, right? Okay. For me, I was 2,000 RP short, so that means I got to maybe go do some side quests, which have been fun, but it's not many side quests to get 2,000 more experience points. What happens is later in the game, it'll jump and you'll be like 20K short, which means you want to progress the story because the main story is very interesting, but the sort of
now you got to go do the side grind for like hours in order to get
when you don't want to. And the whole point of a side quest in a lot of these things is that they are optional. This makes them mandatory, but it isn't just side quests you can do. You can build your house, you can just do whatever, find gear or buy gear.
It's forcing you to engage with the other parts of the game, and not just mainlining the story.
Exactly. That's what the issue. And the problem is, I think that would be okay, but there's balancing they need to do, because if you make that number too high, that means I'm going to have to engage to the point where it becomes annoying.
Wow, this is funny. Is this the ultimate form of Breath of the Wild, ladies and gentlemen?
Oh God. But again, the voice acting, they I'm sorry, they got all Brits. right?
Sure,
But it's a
sure,
Game of
sure.
Thrones world. You really feel like you're in Game of Thrones. If you're a sucker for grim, dark action RPGs, like, and the way I justified this is most of the people did not hit those walls, meaning the RP walls that require you to do other stuff until they got at least 20 or 30 hours into it.
Yeah.
And so for me, if I spent $25 and I got, hopefully 20, 25, 30 hours before I got annoyed and put it down, to me, that's a worthwhile thing. And again, that's going to vary for everybody. But I say if you're in the grim, dark fantasy in general, if you're in the Game of Thrones, you're going to get all the feels, because the plots, politics, the wars, the double crosses, the music right out of the show, the likenesses of the people in the show.
Oh, hey now, look at that. Hey, okay.
I see what Slovo said. Now, do I wish this game had the visual aesthetics of a Dragon Age or something like that, or even an Avowed? Yes, but I don't think the graphics are so bad that I can't tolerate it, right? And it does, if you're running this on your big machine, this will easily get you that 120 frames you're looking for at the fidelity you see on screen. Which is
okay. So the fidelity on screen, to be fair, is kind of dog water.
It's not high. It's not high. No. Absolutely.
Look at their hairs. It's helmets that they're wearing on their heads. Right?
I hear you. But once again, the game has issues. So before you.
So where has been your main place you've played this game? Mainly on Steam, I assume.
You mean mainly on the TV, on the PC?
Oh, okay. But using Steam on TV, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So ultimately, at some point, this may be accessible via the phone.
Yes, it's going to be available. You have to, so you can buy the Founders Pack and get access to it now. You have to request access on mobile. That'll be Google Play and the App Store. But that's like a request and invite only.
Okay, so because you bought it,
you then nobody in this game is saying they go hard with southern SoCal accents in a fantasy setting.
Hold on. I'm just look. I just want to put this out there because the chat. Damn. Lucius says so. Apparently, British accents are good enough to cover PS3 graphics and microtransactions. Insane.
The accents are pretty good, but what I will say, what fascinates me the most about this game is that there's a stigma around mobile games that they are very simplistic, right? This, apart from all the microtransaction stuff that was brought up.
Oh boy!
Right, I would.
Just leave that one there, right there. I love our chat this morning. Anyway, continue.
Hold on. Not Africans from Southern California, though.
Oh man, hating the SoCal Africans
from the continent.
Stop hating the SoCal Africans, man. Go ahead.
But again, everything you would expect from this kind of game is there. And seeing sort of a game that is also on mobile being this fully featured is the thing that fascinates me the most.
I think I'll leave Michael Santiago's response here to really speak for all of us.
No. But see, this is the thing. This is the thing, right? We're saying it contradicts my entire philosophy, which is I need games with a beginning, middle, and end, right? I think that's what you're referring to. And I don't play multiplayer games. This is not a multiplayer game. It is, you can engage for some of the co-op stuff if you want, but it's got all the. Can you pause this game? That's my critical question. Can you pause this game when you need to step away? It's a single player game, but I can't pause it. But I'm out. People, hold on. You cannot pause it mid-fight, but people don't generally follow you. So if you just walk away from the outside of whatever you're doing, if there's no enemies around, no one's gonna come. You're not gonna be but you can't pause the game because even though it's a single player game, they're literally
forcing you into those multiplayer tropes. So you're in a world that doesn't allow you to pause it, right?
That is correct.
TK, he's saying the workaround to the bug in the function is just to not use the function.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I tell people this at work all the time.
That would be a fight Everborn, because my pushback always is the fix to the bug, the workaround to the bug is not to tell people not to use it. That's not a workaround.
So
anyway, okay, ladies and gentlemen.
But again, but if you like Game of Thrones, if you want to immerse yourself in this world, this game does that. But it is, make no mistake about it, a service game to the point that it will be free to play. You cannot pause it. It is just a very well realized. That part's
a big deal breaker for me, man. That's a big. If you're a single player game and you can't pause it, that's a big deal breaker for me. I hate.
Wait,
that.
hold on. Can you pause? What? Why does Elden Ring have no pause button? What's the reason for that?
You know, that stupid leave messages in the world thing, the whole but you can play offline, and if you play offline, then that stuff is like, it's no longer a problem, you know.
Well, I will so let's be there is an offline mode for this game. I don't know what that means. Okay. I don't know if it's just not accepting any party invite requests, but I will test that setting out. The thing is, I need a game I can pause. Can I play this on the handheld on the go when I'm not online? You can, just don't pause it in the middle of a fight.
No, hear me. When I'm on the go, I'm not online.
Oh, you're saying, do you need this game a net connection? Okay.
Is it always connected? Yes.
I understand. I will test that out today. I will test that out.
Please do. Because I would love to play this. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I will be giving out a copy of this next week, because I feel like that, because of the fact that it scales to mobile, right?
Yeah.
Said you got to.
And he's true about that. Pause. No, yes, and that is very true. There's a way to pause in Elden Ring.
Why do you have to learn how to pause the game, though?
It's wild. It is. That's true. Just like you have to learn how to ask a friend. You'd still know what the finger does. Elden Ring. Let's keep it moving.
So, everyone, one thing I'm genuinely curious about, just to give you an opportunity to push aside a lot of the critiques we've heard in the chat. What fun are you having with this game?
There you go.
The story is very engaging, and the combat is satisfying. And again, you get a goddamn horse, and you can just ride the horse in whatever direction you want. You might run into places where people are one-shotting you, but just going around Westeros and feeling like I'm back in the show, it does a really good job of that. So if you weren't a fan of Game of Thrones, or you're not in the grimdark fantasy, this might not be for you. But I feel like this game is scratching the itch that I wanted from Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Meaning grimdark setting, characters that I care about, side quests that don't feel like all the side quests have felt meaningful. Even if what you do in them is pretty basic, like somebody's going to ask you to go somewhere, you're going to have to fight somebody, or you're going to have to do this stealth thing and get out without being seen. But the reason that I'm doing it is a primary driver for it.
Okay, no, I get that. Like you're in love with a fantasy world, right? With a setting. This is giving you an opportunity to live in it. It's $25 as an entrance fee to spend.
For now, it will be free to play later when it's but go ahead.
To spend 50 or 60 hours, right? Being able to be immersed in that world with what you feel is an almost similar level of storytelling. Maybe the immersion, right, in the interactivity make up for any production value, right, that the show had. But like you're getting that Game of Thrones itch again, and for you that was worth the price of admission.
Correct.
I can understand it. I can respect that. I love the chat. There's lots of warriors in the chat from the GCP Discord, so it's not hard pushback. but I'm just gonna there are times that we play games just for fun, right?
Yes, absolutely.
PS3 era graphics, bad hair. Okay, fine, right? But at the end of the day, right? The ultimate math equation we're solving for is the game fun? And if the game is fun to an individual user, then the game probably has some level of value, right? And everybody's got to like determine that, you know, on their own.
Yeah, and it comes back to that, really, right? Like when I was playing Dragon Age, nothing about the game was like bad that I could point to, but I felt like I was playing it just so I could complete it, right? Not because I cared about the plot or the characters or whatever. And then, you know, I started Avowed and I liked it. Nothing I disliked about it, but I mean, there was one thing I disliked about it, which was that voice that talks
yeah. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
Listen, that game put me to sleep, and this game is keeping me up till all hours in the morning. So this is the one that I'm thinking about when I'm not playing it. And
Nerds. Shout out to Nerds and Other Legends, a great member of our community in the Discord.
Hair cards is the number one thing.
And there are plenty of games.
He's joking. He's joking.
There are plenty of games that are like that, they're a world, right, that people are familiar with. Look, I people are probably going to throw shade at me for it, right? But I haven't played Indiana Jones, right? Because from gameplay and what I've seen, it just didn't hit the interest level with me to make it worth my time to get down out of my chair and go play it. But a lot of the feedback that I heard from a lot of people who I think are of similar ilk, like normally it would not be their kind of game. But what I heard from a lot of those people is it's Indiana Jones, right? It's putting me in that world. It's making me harken back to like that time in my life where like Indiana Jones was a big thing for me. So I get that, right? Like the notion of having a pull and allure of a world, right, is part of a thing that will often draw people, you know, into games.
Yeah, and it is entirely more than plausible that on the 24th, when Clear Obscure comes out, I'll drop this like a bad habit. But right now, I don't even want to call it a guilty pleasure because I don't feel guilty. I enjoy it.
Pleasure. I feel you. Play it. So Mr. Sycamore is in the chat asking a pertinent question, and we will get there, sir. He's asking, we need more Nintendo coverage. Are we talking Nintendo today? So I will take that opportunity. Shout out to you, sir. We are talking Nintendo today, sir.
Yeah, we're just wrapping this up. If you love Game of Thrones, check it out. Beware that it is early access. It will be a free-to-play service style game. And as soon as they fix the bug of gifting in the Steam store, I will be giving out 1 or 2 copies of this game next week for anyone that has been swayed by what I said, and this sounds interesting to them.
Okay. So thank you, Everborn Saga. You know what? I did download it. I will give it at least the first couple of hours. I'll give it a shot because I too am a huge Game of Thrones fan. I will tell you, after this conversation, I'm still a little bit iffy on the microtransaction stuff. I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. So after 60 hours in, when I'm complaining, everybody's going to look at the digital receipts and go, didn't they tell you that at day one? But yes.
Highlight Slow-Mo's last comment.
Slow-Mo's last comment. He's going to drop it if another game with a large number of European assets.
Talking about Expedition 33. You damn right.
You're darn right. You're darn right.
Don't say I didn't tell you.
And I want to give a shout out to Everborn for playing a game that he's interested in, that's fun to him, right? Yeah. And for that being the simple reason. I am going to dip a little bit into the slander that I'm known for. And I'll say we, because I'll include myself in this group, there's a lot of hyper focus on us very often playing the games that we feel like we need to be seen playing, right? And talking about. And therefore, as a result, when you all, not you guys, but other people get older and you're looking back at a lot of the games you didn't play because you didn't have the time or take the time to play them because you were focused on playing these other games. Front page of Metacritic.
You saying we're keeping up with the Joneses? Is that what you're saying?
Conspicuous consumption. Yeah. So look, it's no shade at somebody taking a little time to go down an alley, right down a side street, and check something out that's not.
See, not you know what, Game Logic? I would say if this statement you bring allows us to pat ourselves on the back, because I think, and the chat can throw the shade at us if they so choose. I think by and large on this here show, while we do like to keep up with what's going on, we also throw in some gems that you guys would otherwise not have heard of from us before, right? We like to throw things in here from time to time, so we'll take that one.
The show is not solely a dedicated exclusive Zeitgeist show. Yes, very valid.
Highlight Lucius's last comment, not the last one, the one before that.
Oh, the one before that, Lucius. He says, well, yeah, we already highlighted this. He said, if it wasn't a Game of Thrones game, would Everborn even touch this game?
So I'm gonna be 1,000% honest with you. I don't know.
And say no, you don't know. Okay, there you
go. Chances are maybe I wouldn't, right? Because I wouldn't have given it the chance to lure me in with the things that I like about it. And part of it is it's not just the accents. I get the joke, right? But it's the score, it's the likeness of the characters, it is the tone that they are telling the story, right?
I love that he's using the "in it" against you.
I'm much more into dark fantasy than I am into high fantasy. Yeah. Right.
Well, of course, we've seen what you produce, so it makes sense.
Yeah. When I made my comment, it's not like everybody doesn't have to get offended. I'm not talking about the GCP Discord. I'm not talking about the chat. I mean the gaming community writ large, right? Who's engaged in social media and YouTube. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I'm just saying that tends to be a general trend that I feel is a worrisome problem. And like I said, I included myself in that pool because I often lament how I don't have time to get around to some of the games that I'd like to. Like I'm not playing my flight control systems and joysticks are not hooked up right now. My wheel and pedals are not hooked up right now, right? Because I'm playing other stuff.
All right. Yeah, well, okay.
I'd love to play AC Shadows. And I
have actually been playing AC Shadows
with these random.
I have been playing AC Shadows. Yes.
Random games that mostly know what is played.
But you know what? I won't even talk about AC Shadows because, believe it or not, I feel like it's like a really big game, and the more and more I play it, the more and more I'm like, man, this game is big. Although I'm enjoying everything I'm playing. So once I get a little bit, once I get a little bit further in, either you will hear me on here talk about how I dropped it, or I'll be singing its praises. But I'm at a point where, like, while I've enjoyed everything I've had so far, there's still so much more, and I'm just like, oh man, this is a huge ass game. Like, what are we doing? But okay, let's take a pause a little bit, and once again, thanks to all of the wonderful people. Yeah, shout out to Pixel, who's in the chat, dropping the science as he is, the hammer. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you for being here, and all the other great people who are always in our Discord, and people who just show up on the show and join us on the weekends. We appreciate you all. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Consider subscribing. If you're on the YouTubes, think about being a member. We really appreciate all the members and our Discord folks that are also in here as well. Let me take a quick pause because Sycamore asked an important question, and we were going to get there. And that also reminded me, because because our Discord feeds a lot of our conversations. You're going to hear a lot of conversations, or if you're not part of our Discord, you may not know that a lot of those conversations come from there. One of the questions that was asked that really led to an interesting conversation yesterday, and now I'm going to ask it here as far as the poll, and then we'll start our Nintendo conversation. What is the best 3D Mario game? And shout out to the great John Wolf for asking that pertinent question. Is it Mario 64? Is it Mario Sunshine? And because our poll is small, I will combine the galaxies. Is it Mario Galaxy? Or is it Odyssey? Poll starts now. Cast your vote. Tell us
what are the options? Because I can't see it from this chat thing.
It
doesn't support.
Sure, no. I just hit the button. It is 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, or Odyssey. Now I know Galaxy. There's two of them. I combined them because we can't put more than one. We can't.
What about Mario 3D World? Nobody was going to pick that. You didn't need it. Okay.
He just dropping the slander. Anyway, so this begins our Nintendo block. And what do I mean by our Nintendo block? Obviously, we've been talking about Nintendo for a minute now. Nintendo finally dropped the news that it is now getting prepared for its pre-order. Right? We've been speculating about what Nintendo's pre-order would look like since after they announced their information and all of that. There was more talk of tariffs and all of this, So there was a worry that there might be even more of an increase, but here we are. We now know that Nintendo has officially laid it out. I will share it on our screen right now. They are maintaining the same price that they did, which let's talk about that for a little bit. And thank you for being here, Logic. I'm looking forward to your take on this. They are maintaining it. So this is people wiping sweat off their brow, going, whew, we're starting at 450. We're not going any higher. I'll start with you, Logic. What are your thoughts here? Nintendo's maintaining prices. They begin their pre-order on April 24th in the US.
You want to team me up with like what specific vector you're looking for?
So looking for is, I know that you have been paying attention to this as we have been paying attention to this. There was speculation after the 450 came out, which people already had pitchforks out about the 450. They did, right? We heard about it, and there were thoughts that maybe it was because of tariffs. Bowser himself came out and said, "Nah, tariffs have nothing to do with all of that," right? And then the thought was, okay, since the US is the last to get its pre-order date, people were unsure if post announcement that price would rise, since there was more back and forth in the tariff world, right? So at this price, if all stands, if I'm not mistaken, they will be eating some cost on this. Or am I wrong in that the tariffs did carve out a window for electronics hardware? I heard dissenting reports whether or not video game hardware was a factor or not, but that I guess would be a factor here as well. You see where I'm going with it?
Yeah. So let me try and come at this with
Logic.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, Kay, can you roll down to the bottom of this paragraph? I don't know if this is just me being overly cynical. Stop. Okay. Right, so it says, it's just weird to me. This says manufacturer suggested retail price as of April 18th.
Meaning it could change.
What does that mean? Yeah, like are they leaving themselves
not just MSRP period? It's MSRP as of this date. So subject to change.
and I think that's part of the, what was it, like a 90-day reprieve or whatever that was given for the tariffs to actually kick in. And so I think that's a, you know, what I said in the Discord, I think when we were having this conversation was, you know, that they, what they wouldn't do is they wouldn't say, hey, this batch of Nintendo Switch 2s that was already in country, we'll go ahead and sell these for $450. And at the moment when these sell out, the very next one that gets purchased will be $525. Right? Like that's just I don't know.
They can't do that.
PR yourself out of that, right?
That needle's hard to thread. Absolutely. Right. Especially when you're Bowser and you've come out and said, well, we got some in the factories for a while now, right? So yes, absolutely.
With a 90-day reprieve, right, which now runs you to, I forget, I punched the calculator on this before. I think runs you into like July or something. I don't remember, maybe early August, but whatever. What they may be toying with is that, hey, now our risk assessment, right, which again, I think a lot of nuance that gets squeezed out of the conversation is a lot of this discussion is around risk management, right? Our risk assessment is that we've been given this 90-day reprieve, and we think that something else will happen within that 90-day time frame that will allow us to not have to raise prices. So we're going to go ahead and do it at $450. But the one caveat is well, we said we weren't going to get surprised last time, and then like 48 hours after we dropped our price, right, all of a sudden the tariffs included Vietnam, right? So they're giving themselves the room to play with that if they need to. My take and impression on this is, you know, let me start first with, you know, what I'm going to do as a gamer. And I've gone back and forth. So right now, what I've said is that like this isn't a pool I'm going to participate in. My initial comment was, look at $450 for the Nintendo Switch 2 and $80 for some of the games. I just feel like, and again, I'm not a big Nintendo first party person, right? When I had my Switch OLED and my regular Switch, most of what I played on those were third party games and were PC ports, a lot of which I accumulated before the Steam Deck came out. And some I still bought afterwards because I felt the Switch form factor was better than the Steam Decks in some respects. It's a lighter carry. It's a little more it's a little more usable in the hand. There are reasons for that product differentiation that I still found value in. Flash forward to now, and I don't feel like there's that imperative. It's a very skinny value space, right, for me. So I'm not planning on participating. That being said, the one out I will give myself is my kids have expressed a desire to have something for gaming that is better than their Amazon Fire tablets. I'm coming to a point where I hate being the sysadmin and doing parental controls. Those Amazon Fire tablets, I hate the parent dashboard, and they've even rolled that out as a mobile app to make it easier. It used to be you used to have to go to the web to log in. Like it's a pain in my butt. This is some of my pushback on TK, on some of my notions of mobile gaming. I don't feel it is as convenient as sometimes, not you, but some larger pundits, right, portray.
Us graybeards know the truth, but the kids love it. It is right. What it is.
So I mean, to me, it's much more convenient to pick up a Nintendo Switch Lite, right, and turn it on.
Absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely, I agree.
It's very likely that I'm going to have to do something about my kids in gaming to take them to the next level this year. And if that solution is a Nintendo Switch Lite, I'm not going to administer their Nintendo Switch Lites from the web, right? I'm going to want to switch to. So that's something I have to consider. From a business aspect, I know that there's a lot of sturm and drang about the price, and I get that. Tom Merritt made a very good comment today for those of you who listen to the Daily Tech News Show. And if you don't, I think it would be a good thing for people to listen to. It's only like 30 minutes ish. But Tom Merritt made a comment that is similar to another comment I've made. Is we often, well, let me roll back. The thing that I've said is a lot of people talk about Nintendo can't justify the price, and I'm like, there's a thing that I think people should understand. There's only one corporate realm that I know of where price has to be justified, and that's in the world of government contracting, right? Government contracting has FAR clauses and all types of regulations, and you have to justify a price. You have to walk up your price build up. You have to show the LCATs that are employed. You have to build up the cost, and if you have EV, Sarbanes-Oxley, you have to do all this accounting, right, to constantly track. Yeah, verily, it actually took me 200 hours to take this gyro, get it shipped in from the European manufacturer, and go in and install it and do systems integration, right? Commercial companies do not justify prices; they rationalize prices.
Yeah.
Consumers try to justify prices, and if you don't, and if there are things you don't understand, that's probably the crux of the disconnect. What Tom Merritt said on the Daily Tech News Show is we often hyper focus on cost, but as I mentioned in the Discord, cost is only one part, and what Tom mentioned is sometimes the smallest part of how prices get set. Much more so to that, in my mind. In that formula that has weight and burden is comparative price analysis, number one, and then consumer willingness to pay on a capital market. When you talk about comparative price analysis, what I point to is I point to the Switch and I say whatever you will about the Switch. But my question is what handheld gaming device matches the Switch 2 pound for pound at the price point of $450? And I don't know that there is one. I don't think there is one. There are some handhelds which edge it out on capabilities and specs, but now we're talking about a $650 to $900 handset, right? And that may change, right? But I think the challenge that Nintendo is issuing is that if you're gonna, Xbox, PlayStation, PC makers, if you're gonna put like we pioneered this space and we owned it, right? Everybody who's come into this space in the handheld market that tried to make a play, we've chased out. Because when Sony came into this space, right, they made a push with the PlayStation Portable. When they tried to do round two with the Vita, they got their lunch eaten, right? Granted, part of that was because at that point they were being pressured by both Nintendo handhelds and the rise of mobile. But the point is that Nintendo has owned that conventional console handheld space. And what they're saying now is if you're going to come into the space and challenge us, you're going to need to come in and meet us spec for spec at a price point of $450. And even when you do, the one thing that we're going to say is, yes, but there's only one place you can play Nintendo IP. So again, you can decide, right, if that meets your own value calculation, which I would contend anybody who has Xbox as a preferred platform, PlayStation as a preferred platform, and PC as a preferred platform, that calculus is never going to mesh for you because you're trying to overlay your value system on top of what a Nintendo consumer wants, right? So that math is never going to math. So it's kind of pointless to have that conversation. My point is that from a business aspect, what I'm saying is that if I'm Nintendo and I'm sitting in the boardroom and I'm doing the price setting exercise, right, and I'm looking at comparative products on the market and thinking about what people are willing to pay and thinking about the exclusivity of our IP, I can understand the rationale by which they got to 450. That being said, I've also said I'm not going to personally do that unless I get forced to, right, by my kids. The third and last point I'll bring up is, how is this going to play out for Nintendo? What I'm on record as saying right now, today, is that I don't think there was any way in the world Nintendo was ever going to sell another 150 million Switch 2 units. And so if they have acknowledged that, then what they have said is we're going to sell the most that we can at a price that is still profitable for us. My prediction is over a 7-year life cycle, they will get to north of 100 million units, and I think that will be okay.
So a couple of things to the point you made. It's funny. I was talking to the missus this morning, and she always makes fun. We're in Discord a lot during the day. We're all working, and it allows the workday to go faster. So she's like, "You guys are always gossiping in there, right?" And she's like, "You guys live in your own world." And I'm like, "What do you mean live in our own world?" She's like, I don't know. The other day, you guys were arguing about the Nintendo Switch and why it should be so much and how dare they charge that. You know what she said? Mm-hmm. She said they charge that much because they made the thing, and if people want it, they'll buy it, and if they don't, they won't. That's it.
Boom. Drop the mic. Keep it walking. That's it.
I'm always interested to hear what people who are not in our bubble think about the things that we talk about in the bubble, because sometimes you get a different sense of clarity. But that being said,
they have VRR over here with 120 hertz. Just saying.
It's back again.
Well, that's on the handheld, right? Which is another thing.
It's on the handheld.
It's not part of the output.
It's not part of the stack. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So the other piece of it is, in a lot of the sort of drop the price meme, right? A lot of the pushback, I've heard people say that they're annoyed that there's a price hike on the hardware itself, but I feel like the real discussion around Nintendo's pricing schema and whether it is justified is on the software side. Most people think the 450 is higher than they'd like, but most people understand.
But they can justify it. Yes, the software is where the pitchforks come. Yep, right. I agree.
So I think if we're gonna have that discussion about price justification and how people set those rubrics, the real space that discussion is taking place is on the software front, and whether people feel like, because here's the thing, when the industry moved to $70 a game, a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people complained about it. I made a meme about it and sold a few t-shirts saying charge them more. And I don't apologize for that. You can get that in the Everborn Saga store right now. But the kind of general understanding was, hey, production costs have gone up. These AAA games are costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make. We now have to charge more in order to make the nut back, right? But Nintendo, we've always traditionally, right, up until Tears of the Kingdom, we've said, all right, Nintendo's using older hardware. We know they have higher margins and lower production costs, and so their games didn't really move up to 70 apart from Zelda, and that was all like, well, they worked on this thing for 6 years and there's super high demand for it, and that demand part is the issue. So I think what we're seeing is people pushing back or not, or sort of having consternation around this idea of demand-based pricing, right? You try to get an Uber from an airport on a Friday night and see what the different pricing is. If that's what we're bringing to games, that's uncomfortable, and not even because Mario Kart doesn't provide enough value for $80, but what stops the next publisher, and I know what you're going to say, Logic, before you say it, what stops the next publisher from saying, well, I put a lot of work and I think this game really has a demand, so here, hold this $90 or $100, right?
Well, I think the thing I want to capitalize on, Everborn, is what you said about the Uber driver, and I think this is a key thing that needs to be brought into the conversation, right? And I'll back up one step when we talk about the people complaining, because I heard this on Kind of Funny Games Daily, actually, in one of the last episodes that I decided I'm ever going to watch of the show, and I heard I think it was Tim Geddes talking about how he's not giving Nintendo a pass because they absolutely held Nintendo accountable for it on the show, right, in their verbiage, but then admit that he was going to go buy it. I'm like, okay, so this is the stupidness of the content creation, right, playing field, right? People complaining about stuff on social media and Twitter, that doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is whether or not you go and you participate on the free-flowing capital on the free-flowing economy of the capitalist market. And if you're buying the thing, you're sending the telemetry to the company that you're willing to pay that price. So the key thing that you introduced that I think needs to be brought into this is, let me push off the table the notion of what people are complaining about on Twitter, right, and in YouTube, because the only thing that's pertinent, in my opinion, is and what I actually would want to hear from those people instead of their complaints is, okay, what are you doing? Like, I don't care that like you're not happy that the price raised. This is my one hit against your guys' monetization. I'm going to say no shit, right? But the point is that what are you doing? What I said, not to toot my own horn, but what I said,
no worries, we all get one. Go ahead.
What I said is, I'm not buying the Nintendo Switch because, right? This is the value analysis that I made, because I don't know that it makes sense for me to pay $450 when I have, in my case, it's not normal, but when I have Steam decks, right, and I play a bunch of PC games, and every game that I buy in my Steam library is almost all of it is playable on mobile. Like, I don't know, it's such a skinny value space that it doesn't make sense for me to endure that expense, right? So what now, right, what I want to talk about from what Everborn introduces, now platform off of that for the normal consumer, not the person on Twitter, not the person on YouTube. Person on Twitter says, this thing is coming out, I'm a Nintendo main, or I enjoy playing Nintendo games, the only place to play them is on Nintendo, software price is high, yay, verily, whatever, okay? People are saying in the chat, nobody's complaining, not as many people are complaining about the hardware price. Okay, so you're going to go and pay the $450, right? And again, on Daily Tech News Show, they talked about the myth of the sunk cost. You've now invested in the hardware, right? Is that mainstream user going to say they're not going to play Mario Kart? Right? Are they going to look at it like, hey, I've already spent the $450, the $80 price, not happy about that, but am I literally not going to play the thing that all the other people that have this handheld are playing? Especially now that we've amped up like how social it is. And again, there are complaints about the technical implementation of the social features, right? Again, I don't know that I care, right in the value prop, right, discussion. But the question is that I invest in the hardware. There are these games available. They're the Nintendo first party games, which is the big get, right, of investing in the hardware in the first place. What are you going to do? And then you back that up even to the hardware. You may not like the $450 price, but again, a Nintendo main, a person who loves Nintendo, what are their alternatives? Their alternatives are, maybe they go buy a Steam Deck, maybe they go buy a ROG Ally, maybe they become a PC gamer, maybe they go Xbox, right? All the, hey, for the price of this, you could go buy a Series S, and the Series S does 44. Like, maybe those are valid scenarios. I don't really know. But my point is, like, I think if you're going to have a serious discussion about, hey, we don't like this price, or we don't like this value prop, this thing coming on the market, then what has to be invoked is the discussion of, okay, what should a person go do, and what is the market likely to do?
Well, I can tell you what and I know I don't fall in the tranche that you just described, right? We like to consider ourselves the 4%, people who buy multiple games per month. Shout out to Matt Piscatella. But the only way I will get Mario Kart is if I am able to secure the bundle, which would only net the cost of it to $49, right? Because you can buy the $4.99 model. But personally, there's not anything that, but again, this is me, and I've never really been a Mario Kart person, right? but I would check it out for $50. There's no chance. And the games that I do want on the Switch are $59 and $69. On the Switch 2 are $59 and $69, which are Metroid Prime 4 and Donkey Kong Bonanza, right?
Mhm.
So those and again, I've come to the acceptance stage of grief with the $70 games, right? Because there was a time where, you know, I didn't like that, but it's been long enough. I accept
Everborn,
it.
I will tell you, I can count on one hand how many $70 games I own.
Oh no.
Since
Since
I don't buy
I have
games anymore
gone-
because of that.
Listen, since I have swam in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, that is PC, I have not paid $70 for anything, because even games day one, usually you can get it at some kind of a discount from somewhere. So,
and as they go to $80 games, if this is becoming a norm, mark my words, people will sail the high seas far more often. They're setting themselves up for failure, I suspect.
The other thing is, if I do not secure a bundle that gives me Mario Kart for $4.99, Nintendo, I bet you will start seeing Nintendo do sales over time, right? Which traditionally they don't do, or it is very sparingly.
Nintendo sales? What is that?
No, I mean, what I'm saying is they're not going to be able. I don't think, right? Just supply and demand wise, they'll be able to keep that game at an $80 price tag for the life of this hardware cycle.
I don't disagree. I think it's going to bring about interesting times. Nintendo, where we are with the pricing.
You are correct.
Yeah.
The only thing that a company will understand is, did this allow us to meet our goals or didn't? How did consumer sentiment affect sales? And if consumer sentiment does not affect sales, then they will do whatever they can until sales are affected. The only thing I will say from a content creator perspective, right? And again, I understand the sort of double speak that is, I'm gonna stand on my soapbox and then buy the game anyway, right? For science purposes, let's call it, right? But sometimes, and we can discuss the morality of this as we want. The content creators can sometimes be the voice of that consumer and affect those consumers' buying decisions. So if they're voicing their discontent, and then a regular person hears that and then starts to think, hey, maybe this is not worth $80, and then that has some knock-on effect. Is there any what does that mean if that is in fact what happens? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is a Dunning-Kruger thing for content creators, thinking that they have that sway over the casual buying audience.
And I don't entirely disagree with you. The one thing I'll say is, I'll just go back. It's not so much I don't want to say it's a correction, but I would contend that when you're talking about, you know, when games raised to $70, you know, that people raise their hands, right? But it wasn't just when games went to $70, and I often point back to, like, we've been doing this now for 50 plus years, right? Like,
it's a pastime of ours.
When games
complain about the prices going up.
Yeah, $60, $50, $40, right? Each time those $10 incremental bumps have happened, there's been squawking. But then what the market has done is the market has supported those prices. You know, you're mentioned to maybe if there's a notion of responsibility of consumer advocacy. My thing is, what I will say is that's fine. I feel like what makes it credible to me is the context. And so, and I'm not picking on anybody who made any mention of something in the chat. It's just that it cued me into this conversation that's been going on. I don't feel it's genuine consumer advocacy when you say, why would you spend $450 for a Switch and $80 for Mario Kart when you could go buy a Series S for $250 and access your games via Game Pass? That to me is platform bias and corporate defending, and not actually a valid consumer analysis of suitable substitutes on the market. Because what a lot of those people are going to say is, I would love to do that. Those things don't play Mario Kart. nor will they play the next Zelda, right? And so a person, and to me, and again, a lot of this happens, right, because we're doing things in short snippets and we're not really having a fully fleshed out discussion. Again, not us, but the gaming community in general, and hampered by the character limit of Twitter, right? You're like, in my opinion, for a person to make a groundswell change that they are going to get out of the intellectual investment in a lore and a mythology, right? I've been a Nintendo main for generations. And now you're telling me that because of high prices, you recommend that I switch to an entirely different platform. That's not a small discussion, right? That can be incredibly complex. A person may need to sit down and do a spreadsheet and do a bunch of pros and cons, right? And so I feel like well, you should just do what I do, right, is disingenuous, right? Because first of all, if it were credible, I would say that what a person would really say is, you have this option for my platform, you have this option for the other platform, and you have this option, right? You would present them all of the options, not just your preferred platform. This again gets back to you can go build a PC for $700 instead of buy a PlayStation 5 Pro, and then the use case, right? All the PC parts picker warriors who made those things up, and then the use case you're presenting is, I'm going to recommend you an obsolete motherboard whose socket has already been superseded by Intel because the chips that they're already deploying are going to force you to have to do a motherboard upgrade the next time you turn around and right, like those are the types of disingenuous things that I think people do because they're trying to contrive outcomes. So, are there viable options to the Nintendo Switch 2? Absolutely, right? But they're not one viable option. There's three, and all of them would require some deep thought by somebody if they were actually a Nintendo main.
Yeah, I think this is another thing, right? And Kay Asante and I do this to each other all the time, right? He'll tell me how great Android is, and I'll tell him, I use iOS, right? And I can complain
record, I use both. Continue.
Fantastic. But I can complain about like borderline anti-consumer things that Apple does, or sometimes outright anti-consumer things. And that's not me throwing around the term. That is like regulatory bodies in the EU throwing around the terms, right? And I've tried to go and switch to Android, and all the little death of a thousand cuts that happens just makes it like me not liking what Apple is doing. Switching to Android, is it possible? Yes. Are there suitable alternatives? Yes. Actually doing it, too much of a headache for me to like. That headache is less than the headache Apple is causing me, so I'll just put up with.
So to be fair, when he wanted to do the switch, he chose a Microsoft like tablet like handheld device that ran Android in order to do his experiment.
Okay. And that was terrible. And then I tried it again with a folding phone made by Google. I tried it twice.
Well, but why are you using edge cases is my question. Use something that's tried and true and normal. Stop using edge cases to make the operating system look.
I don't want to get into this like
anyway, let's move on
thing right now. But I will say one of my primary concerns with Apple is that they keep giving me the same candy bar phone again. And I switched to Android because they were more exciting and doing things different. The whole mobile market has lost a lot of soul once we've decided on this one form factor. And I don't want is a Google version of this form factor.
Understood.
But anyway.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's take a quick pause. I have a couple super chats, and then we'll get back into it.
Okay, I didn't need that.
Didn't need that sauce.
Septic, I'm timing you out for 90 minutes.
He came in here with a drive-by sniping with a £5 super chat.
He's probably not even still in the chat.
No, he's not. He's out. We have to read it. He just came and sniped and peaced out.
He farted in the elevator and left. Yes.
That's exactly what he did. The worst Mario murks the best Sonic. And then he peaced out. He ran.
We didn't need that.
Sir. And then the awesome Soil Tech, great member of our community. He said hit the like button. He's been a member.
Reminding us to do our jobs and tell people to hit the like and subscribe. Yes.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Before we continue, though, I wanted to ask this question. I wanted to pose this question because Timper21 posed this in the chat. And I thought it was a really, really good question to ask to add to that discussion we were having. And he says, I will just say as a gaming hobby, I will just say gaming as a hobby is quickly becoming Yes, coming to an end for me. Forgive me. I have other hobbies that I enjoy more with the family. How many people do you think this is crossing the threshold? And I mean pricing and whether it be a hardware pricing or software pricing. Do you think anybody's there yet?
Right. I want to
go ahead. Yeah,
because we've famously talked about burnout and these other things, right? And I think that for me, I have felt that. I've even felt that it was because you guys obviously know this. I produce a comic book. I do other things, right? And gaming was beginning to feel more like a chore, more like I needed to play the new thing. And what I realized, what was becoming more cumbersome and not bringing joy to my life, but more so strife, it wasn't gaming, but it was the discourse around gaming. And specifically, it was, I'm just going to be frank here, it was X and the timeline, right? And so gradually, I began pulling back from the timeline and following whatever the current
and real quick, I don't mean to cut you, but I you just made a very pertinent statement there, and I need to co-sign. He didn't say Twitter, he said X and the timeline. I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, so then what kind of formed kind of naturally is the Discord that we have, and it's kind of, it's not curated, anyone can join, but the people who talk every day are people that I consider friends, and we have like honest discussions among friends who don't all agree with each other. Matter of fact, most of what we do is debate from different perspectives on things. Logic, you've been in there sometime, gets hectic, but that, and coupled with no longer feeling the need to play whatever the latest thing is. The most fun I've had with gaming in this last year or so has been with games that maybe came out a year or two ago that I just didn't know about or missed or whatever, right? Games that people are not talking about on the timeline. Games that I'm now discovering and playing with my daughter. And so I still have that fun now, but the mainstream discourse, as well as what is the current flavor of the month in terms of gaming, I think trying to keep up with that, and then watching what I call is a bunch of miserable people arguing online, that is what took the fun out of this hobby that I grew up with. And I've not fully pulled away from that, but the more I pull away from it, the more I've felt what I've always felt with this hobby, and enjoyed it.
That is an awesome point, sir. That is an awesome point. And go ahead, Game Logic.
So I think I've gone through a little bit of that too. I think you guys know, because I think you and I ran into each other along the same timeline. I wound up getting into this space, I guess 3 years ago at the tail end of the pandemic ish. By walking into spaces and meeting Brap, and I've been a co-host on his show since then, and that's the same path that I came across you guys. And unfortunately, I think I'm on my third Twitter account since then, because I get so frustrated with the gaming conversation, and actually these days, quite honestly, I've sometimes found better dialogue with ChatGPT than I found in some gaming conversations, and your guys' Discord has helped with that as well.
GPT can be less predictable than some of the talking points.
Actually, you know what? It's good you bring that up, because I will bring that up today. We were having another chat, and that'll be the last topic we deal with before we get out of here. We were having another chat where we were just debating what would happen, end state, this, that, and the third. And we just put ChatGPT in the mix, and some of the results were hilarious. We really had a good time yesterday on Discord with that. Please continue. We'll put a pin in that and come back to it.
So, and if you want to do an interesting thing, have ChatGPT look at your Twitter profile and the Twitter profile of other content creators, and ask it for its description or summary. Some amazing insights at ChatGPT, having the same takeaways that sometimes you will.
So logic. Because you said that, I'll quickly point out, what the question that led us down a very wonderful discussion yesterday was knowing where Microsoft was in 2022, right? Let's go down a speculative path. They didn't buy ABK. Where are they in 2025? Oh man, what that thing said, it was hilarious. We should go to it.
So from the economic standpoint of what the person brought up, right, which is that oh no, I can't see the super chat. That basically, they're. I mean,
can you put it back on the screen, Kay? Just to give logic the reference.
And this is part of my. It's not necessarily pushback. Maybe it is like this. Like, there's a lot of vilification of Nintendo going around.
Hold on. I'm trying to find it.
And I think what my pushback is because a lot of the vilification is Nintendo bad, my platform good, right? That is tripping a point of intolerance with me, and I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. And this isn't me giving a pass for what Nintendo is doing, but this is me saying, look around at your other platforms, right, including your own, at what everyone's doing, and there are some things going on that are starkly different from an economic perspective than they have been in the past. I'm a PC gamer. I only play now on PC, so, but my current reality is the premier consoles have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, some systems that's shared, some systems that's dedicated. That is a primary hardware target for a lot of game developers. NVIDIA is putting out cards with 8 to 12 gigabytes of VRAM. And so if you want to safety yourself, in my opinion, you need to go out and get a card with 16 gigabytes of VRAM so that you're concurrent with what the developers are targeting on console. And if you want to do that for NVIDIA, you're paying $1,000 for a 5070 Ti right now in real world prices. I'm like, and I have tried. So my wife and kids are out of town right now. This is very typically the time where I will do a PC upgrade or a new build. I have pretzeled myself into knots since I've been back, trying to convince myself to go get a new GPU. And I have the money and I can afford it. That's not an issue. But I keep coming back to trying to force myself over that hump. Right. And so part of my pushback is I do have an extreme problem with some content creators who have tried to vilify Nintendo, who have bought 4090s. And I don't know that any 4090 has ever been sold at MSRP. Right? 4090 MSRP was $15.99. And most people that I know paid north of $15.99 for theirs. And there's, in some way, there's some rationale going on that you guys didn't enable NVIDIA to come back and charge $19.99 MSRP for the 5090s. And I'm like, no, that makes no sense. Like, and so you can't go around and vilify Nintendo while concurrently doing the same thing for your own platform and your own environment, leading to the exact same behavior. That is called being hypocritical and disingenuous. And that's what I have a huge problem with, right? So, but this notion that this person brought up that like kind of they're getting pushed out of gaming, I don't want to super simplify it and say that prices are going up, but like there are some extreme things going on at a technical level. When we do this next time around, when the next gen consoles come out, what are they coming out with? Are they coming out at 16 gigabytes of VRAM? Or are they coming out with more? What does that do to what is that knock-on effect to PC gamers? And what choices do I have to make? I have historically been somebody who has, for 26 years of building PCs, I have just had a recap point, has been my metric. When X period of time expires that I've been on the last hardware set, it's time to upgrade. I don't really care about benchmarks and prices and whatever the hell is going on in the industry. I just say, I've been on this hardware for X period of time, it's time for me to recap. And I don't necessarily do it right then. Sometimes there's a few months of drift, right? But that's when I start going about making my plans and doing the research to do a new build or do an upgrade. I have definitively hit the point where I've said, I'm not upgrading until I actually have to, right? The box I've been playing on most recently has a 3080 Ti in it. I'm able to play at my frames. When I run into problems like Monster Hunter Wilds, and some other games, I move them to a system where I have a 4000 right GPU. I'm just at the point now where I'm like, okay, until the 3070 Ti and the 3080 Ti start hitting new games where are a Call of Duty, especially, right, where I'm barely doing over 60 frames per second, I'm good. Like I'm shifting to only upgrading when I need to. And I think that is representative of a lot of changing economic factors that there are in the market and in the GPU space, especially. I've been saying for a very long time, look, some of you guys who came into the space when there were $400, $300, $400, $500 GPUs and you were able to game fine, you need to understand you've been priced out of the market, right? And when you've been priced out of the market, you need to make choices. And so this assessment that this person's doing of like, hey, I may be getting out of gaming, I think that's going to thing that's happening and is going to happen to more and more people, and those are choices you're going to have to make. And all of you guys, all of us who have had this bravado of, well, I own all 3 or 4 platforms. I don't know that we're all going to be saying that next gen, because I don't know that the economics on that are the same. They're definitely shifting.
Oh, definitely. I will tell you definitively that I will not be saying that next gen. That's for sure.
I mean,
because you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, the only thing that I'll consider next gen is a handheld. PC will, because just by nature of it eventually getting almost every game, I'll get like that'll be my main, and that was some of the biggest rationale that went into that. But there's no chance I'm getting a dedicated console that goes under the TV. I don't care who it's from. Handhelds, on the other hand. Now, I do want to say though, I would like to just to your point about people with PCs and having issues with Nintendo. The only pushback I would say to that is I don't know anyone. I don't care if they primarily game on PC that wasn't up Jensen's behind, right, about the rollout of the 5090 and the 4090 before that in prices. Now, are they buying it? Yes, but they do complain about it. I have not. I've only met one Lisa Sue apologist. Shout out to Floodzilla. And I have not ever met a Jensen apologist, even though they buy the products. And I'd argue the people that are complaining about the Nintendo prices, just like they complained about Nvidia and still buy it, those people complaining about the Switch are still going to buy it. This is just like complaining that gas prices go up. You're going to complain, but you're going to buy it. So I think I'm okay with there being a space for people to voice frustration about some of it is inflationary, some of it feels let's just put it lightly, market driven prices. But people absolutely do complain. Just look, listen, Tech Jesus or would not have so many followers if people didn't complain about this stuff. So I just
shout out to Gamers Nexus.
Well, yeah, but, yes, and you're admitting to it, Everborn, right? I guess my difference in perspective, right, or the other side of the coin that I look at it from is, yes, they complain, but and this is a case in point with Nvidia, right? People complain about 8 gigabyte GPUs and about rising prices. Those XX60 cards are the best selling cards, right? For Nvidia,
they buy it anyway.
Where now they have been emboldened to do a 5060 and slap a TI label on it and have it have 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Right,
$500.
Right, and Lucius is saying in the chat, they have 5060s or on sale on on Newegg for $500, and there are some SKUs. A lot of them are out of stock. Some of them are north of $500. I think the one that I see now is $550, right? But the other point is those GPUs are also going to run out of legs, right, sooner than some of the top end ones. I'm sitting happy on my 3080 Ti now because it was a high end, right, GPU that I paid for, and so that's got some more legs to it. So all I'm saying is that, look, stuff is getting more expensive. It is scaling at a level that is beyond just inflation, as you said, Everborn. It's causing people to, in my opinion, make economic threshold shifts in what you used to think of as your budgetary envelope, and make decisions. And some of those decisions, like for me, are that maybe you're not going to recap as frequently. Maybe you're going to buy differently. I also don't, and it's just me, I also don't go in for the, it's corporate greed. Well, again, I go back to, no-ish, right? Everything on the capital market is driven by greed. That is why it's a capital market. And then what we have to do as consumers is we have to decide whether or not it meets the value prop, right for us or not.
Yeah, I mean, my
So, yes.
strategy, what I think going forward is, you know, what can I get top of the line system builder pre-built, meaning I get to pick the parts, so I know that they're not like Dell parts. But
Dell's not the only critic, bro. Be careful. Dell's not the only one.
No, it's not them. I'm just saying I know exactly what's in there. So system builder or system configure or whatever. Do that. I did it for the 4090. I'm skipping the 5090. I'll do it again for the 6090 because then I will have gotten 3 to 5 years from this 4090, and then I'll just do another pre-build for whatever the best I can buy at that time, and then let that run me for another 3 to 5 years.
Max City Entertainment, and real quick, I will disabuse you of the notion that 3 to 5 years is a long enough time for a 4090. Come on, man, that should be at least almost 10 years. But okay,
not for a 4090, but for me.
Sure. Max City Entertainment, he's been a member for 2 months. We appreciate you, sir. He says, why is Sony and Nintendo killing our fun with greed? I will actually expound that and say, why is greed in general killing our fun? Because I don't think Nintendo and Sony are the only culprits of it. I think it's the game, and we are hating the game. Maybe we should change the game.
This is what I come back to. It's this keeping up with the Joneses stuff that's killing it. The companies are going to charge what the companies are going to charge, but like, come on, like if you don't have to buy games day one, right?
Yes, we don't.
9 times out of 10, when you get a game on day one, it's going to be way buggier than it will be a year or more later, right?
Says the guy who paid extra for a game that will be free to play day one. Continue, sir.
That's fine. Will it be updated on time though? But my point is, there's so many sales. If you're on PC, you have the key sites where you can get discounts even on day one on new stuff, right? You don't need to get every generation of the NVIDIA or AMD cards, right? You know what, Everborn? So what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be that, and you don't have to have the newest, latest, best.
Let's thread that. Give me a minute, sir. Let me thread that. Let's thread that, and that'll be our final topic. And I'll put this on the screen here, right? I was trying to talk about end state, and that is a very pertinent part. Like you're saying, hey, you don't have to buy your games day one, all of that, right? Tie that in. These are the deal sites you're talking about, right?
Right.
If where we're heading, let's say 2026, what does that look like? I say, in this world where it's driving to, these deal sites will not be what we think. The deal sites will get far more play. I think piracy will get far more play if we live in a standard $80+ world. What do you think?
Let me tell you what I know you weren't doing this, and this is not the point you're making, but just because of the conversation we had the other day, I don't like the idea of having one of these key sites up while we talk about piracy, because there are certain people that are trying to equate these key sites to piracy, and that is not.
And then they're not. But let's be clear. A lot of these sites, most of these sites, and that's the reason why I come to GG Deals specifically. So let's be absolutely clear about that. I come to GG Deals specifically because they will tell you the history of some of these sites, because this is a site aggregator, right? So it'll go through the list and they'll tell you, oh, this is a great deal, this is a great deal, and then depending on the game you choose, it'll show you the site that has the best deal and tell you if that site has a history of nefarious behavior or whatever. So it'll help you stay above board. Like, for example, here's 33 Immortals, Expedition 33, for example. But you can see that these are the top sites that are selling them. And if you keep going, these guys don't even have the worst ones, right? Because CD Keys and the rest of them,
right?
It'll talk to you about the risk right here.
It's a $50 game, but you can get it for 30, right?
You can get it for 30, right? And you can get it on CD Keys. Now, these are normal, proper sites that are legit. There have been historical sites that have not been legit. And as such, sites like GG Deals have been aggregating these sites and have been posting these risk statements and telling you what historically, where you should buy and where you should stay away from. So I say, this is very much legit, but to me personally, this is me speculating on where we are in, I don't know, 2027, 2028, if this trend continues, I say this will be a standard fare for people to buy stuff, but piracy will become a problem, a bigger problem. And why I say that, because back when piracy used to be a problem, it actually took a lot of effort. And yes, there are mitigating factors now that are still being put in place, but the process of circumventing those factors, the cat and mouse game, is far simpler now. And the reason why people don't do it now is because of the convenience and the pricing and all of that. But if you're starting to push more of the envelope in the pricing realm, I see people looking more into that and seeing that, hey, it's far easier now than it used to be. And that may be a problem, but that's my opinion on it. Everborn, you're talking about GG deal sites being more of a staple in gaming.
So yeah, what I'm getting at, it doesn't just have to be that, because this is primarily, yes, you can buy stuff for keys for PlayStation and Xbox and whatnot here, but things go on sale in the stores on the console. My point is,
true, yeah,
if we're feeling price pressure and it's sort of economic things that are hampering our experience of gaming, my thing is there's way too many games out to have time for, and I guarantee you there are things that you missed and things that you didn't even know that you missed. And so what I'm advocating is open your mind to the possibility of games that you that are in different genres that you don't normally play, or games that are not as new as the $70 or $80 game. And you may be pleasantly surprised that you find better experiences that feel more polished than the ones that are full price on day one.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. And in terms of upgrading your hardware, you do that when you need to. Right. So if you're on the PC side, you don't have to go to a 40 series directly to a 50 series. Maybe skip a series.
Yeah.
So you basically do what is gonna
best for your wallet,
and just ensure that you are broadening your horizons in terms of what you look at. But if you want, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. So if you want all these games on day one, you can have that. You're just gonna have to pay for it. You want the newest PS5 Pro or 9070 card, you're gonna have to come out of pocket for it. But you don't have to do that.
Yeah, you never have to do that. Absolutely. Logic, sir. What are your thoughts?
These are just the words to the people who think that
you have to be there day one
of the hobby, and you don't have to, because this hobby and a lot of people, it's not a luxury hobby. There's just different ends to it. And there's so much that enjoyment that you can have and new things that you can experience, unless you're playing, all 19,000 games that were released on Steam last year, or Xbox or PlayStation, right? I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that you haven't. And
if you haven't played a game like, let's say, Red Dead Redemption 2, look at that price point. That is insane.
So
for that price point.
I just think, But Logic.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get Logic's take on it before we get out of here, and I'm talking more end state, right? And we're using Nintendo as a barometer, but it doesn't have to be Nintendo. It doesn't have to, it could be Xbox, it could be PlayStation, it could be your PC experience, as you've articulated already. Where we are trending.
Okay, I'm so sorry. This was one point I forgot to make. In terms of not playing new games or using these key sites, right? That is your number one hedge against these raising prices, because if more people weren't playing games on day one and they didn't have the signal that people were buying less games, or maybe they're okay with people buying less games as long as they make more money net, right, from said games, meaning if I raise the price on something and less people buy it, but enough people still buy it such that I turn a profit, then that price increase is justified, right? So if they're seeing themselves make less money because people are playing older games at price points that they're actually comfortable with, not the price points that they claim to be comfortable with, because I think that's what Logic points out, that there's a delta between that. Right? You say you're uncomfortable with this price, but then you buy it. So in fact, as far as the company.
You're not really uncomfortable.
Are
yes.
right.
Yes.
You are
Yes.
perfectly fine with that price. But
Yeah.
if they see the games that are selling are the ones that are $40, $50, or on sale or whatever, then they'll say, hey, this is the price point that there is demand for. So we're gonna have to try to make sure we're producing things in that price range. But that doesn't happen until we writ large
vote with our wallets in the way we should. Absolutely.
So you don't have to stop gaming and boycott all gaming to do that. Just you don't have to play the new stuff. But sorry, I just wanted to add.
No, you very good point. Very good ad. Logic, sir. What do you think of the end state? Pick your poison, pick your platform. You're a gamer like we are. We don't see the trend switching, going in the other direction, as you have already articulated on a few occasions. The price of gaming is becoming increasingly more expensive, I should say. I am saying that as this is becoming the trend, more and more secondary markets in hardware will become more useful. You'll start seeing them live longer. I say generations of old hardware will start lasting long, and I say piracy will start becoming a factor in the equation, becoming more mainstream, even though they've successfully been able to put it in the background. What are your thoughts on the end state as we see it?
My hypothesis for a while, for a few years, and it's also my recommendation to the industry, because I think the hypothesis is valid and will provide relief, is that I predict what we're going to see is we're going to see a rise in the price of AAA games to the point where we're going to start pricing some people out. And when those people get priced out, I think then those people will start playing more AA and indie games, which they don't do today. There's a lot of discussion that the escape vector out of rising AAA game prices is to play AA and indie games, but there's a reason those games don't get made by the major publishers. They don't get made because people didn't play them, because what we see charting on NPD every month is the big stuff. So the way to create the demand for that market is actually to raise prices at the high end, by which they will then be paid a commensurate price for the production costs of those games, while wilting demand a little bit, but then they will invoke a demand for the lower tier stuff, which will enable them to make them when there is sufficient demand for them to actually be consumed. I think part of what you guys were talking about is like an escape vector for like these secondhand markets and keys, and that's specific to, well, I mean, the secondhand markets and keys is, I think part of the assessment in my mind is what people are willing to do and convenience. Back in my analog is Napster. Like back in the days of Napster, and I've always been a big music fan. Had I not gone down the path that I eventually wound up going down, I actually had a full ride on a music scholarship, and that's what I was going to go do. But back in the days of Napster and the rise of BitTorrent, even in that era, I tried doing those things a few times, and then those things became inconvenient. And so when Apple started allowing you to buy music a la carte at 99 cents a track, I just did that because that was more convenient to me. It was more convenient for me to just spend that money than be bothered with all the workarounds and participating in suspect activity for which maybe I would be held accountable, right?
Yes.
So I was like, I'll just
and
go buy the music
that's
for
the
99
point I was
cents.
saying. That's the point I was saying. They made it convenient, and in so doing, they moved people away from that stuff that was ridiculous and it was cumbersome and all that time. Now they're kind of my speculation is that where we're heading will have certain subset of the individuals look back that way, and you'll see that the ground has changed in that realm, and a lot more will fester in that realm now because of rising costs, right? And convenience always trumps everything, but if you start making it a little less inconvenient, people will start learning the things you don't want them to learn.
Yeah, and my alternative is and again, before really the rise of Steam, right? I was a big person who would frequently visit, I forget what the name of the site was Game Copy World, I think was the name of the site, and that was a way for you to pull down hacks that would actually let you install the game, run an executable to remove the key requirement from your game,
The statute of limitation has been removed, sir. Speak freely.
And then install your game wherever you wanted it to and be able to play it without putting the CD in, right?
Yeah.
But when Steam came along and Steam said you can install this game wherever you want, we don't really care, right? I was just like, dude, I'll just pay the money, right? And then when you couple that with Steam sales, I was like, okay, now we've hit that same thing, Napster to iTunes convenience level, where I'm not going to do all this stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
So I hear what you're saying about like Green Man keys and all that stuff, but what I will say is the antithesis to that is a consumer who says Steam games are cheap enough, I can wait. I don't personally go to those sites because I don't have the time to be bothered digging through, worried about the pedigree of like where the stuff came from and whether it's legit or not. And I'm sorry, I'm just enough of a goody two shoes that I'm not going to take people at their word, right? I'm just going to go to Steam and buy my games and be done with it and not have to worry about it, right? So
and to be fair to Steam, Logic, they do a pretty good job with those seasonal sales.
Yeah,
they do.
I mean, it's like I cannot buy enough stuff from Steam at discount prices, and not because I don't have the money, just because I actually just don't have the time that I'm willing to invest. Like I make a wish list, and I tell myself this every time. Like with Netflix, I made a wish list way back in the day, and eventually that wish list got to of like stuff I wanted to watch got like over 100, and I was like, this is unmanageable. So I actually went in and spent some time on a weekend and blew my Netflix, like, I want to watch this list away. I did the same thing for a while with Steam. I've gone back to doing it. My wish list is in excess of 100 games. I literally just don't have the time or the willingness to go buy everything at the, like, it's too much. So I'm like, that right there creates an envelope for me by which I don't feel the need or the willingness to be bothered to go off and buy stuff. And like, I think the mainstream, again, consumer may not either. When you come to the console space, and you brought up Matt Piscatella's research and like the numbers he presented a few weeks ago on an episode of Kind of Funny. That mainstream user is walking into Best Buy, GameStop, Target, Walmart. They don't know anything about what's been said on a podcast, what's on Twitter, what got shown at a latest showcase. They may have heard something from a friend, right? But they go on and they look at the stuff that's featured and pushed into their face and whatever the kid in the Best Buy tells them, right? And they're only going in to buy a couple of games a year. So maybe those prices creep up like to $80. I don't know that deters them and sends them careening off to an entirely different consumer behavior. So I don't know that it causes the groundswell change. I know one of the things I think Lucius made, and Soil Tech brings up the Gaben philosophy. Yeah, I know one of the things Lucius said is, people are already buying fewer games, and I'm like, yes, those are those 4%, right? That we're buying multiple games in a month, and that's just not a large part of the market. So is there impact from that? Yes, but the impact is on the 4%. I don't know that the 50%, right, and higher. People who either like the 30% who don't buy a game at all, right? Because that's one of the things that Piscatella brought up, or the next larger percentage that only buys 2 games a year. I don't know that those $10 incremental bumps, deter those people and cause them to engage in an entirely different consumer behavior. So I just think we're a ways off from seeing like a cataclysmic shift. And I think people are mostly going to just continue doing the same thing that they've always done.
Good point.
Everborn, and by doing what they've always done, he means complain about things.
Complain about stuff. Yes.
Buy and therefore enable the companies to
and then continue to buy stuff. That's right. That's right. Yes. And when you do want to complain about stuff, you can always come into our Discord. We are there to complain to you about the stuff we don't want to hear about, and you can complain to us about the stuff you don't like about gaming, and we're there to give you virtual hugs in so doing. Our
Discord or tomatoes, depending on the thing.
Or tomatoes, depending on yes. And if Mr. Wolf is anywhere near you, he's gonna chop your knees off. Just so you know, he needs knees for his mantle. It is what it is.
And even if your knees are still intact, he will say that he got them anyway.
He got them anyway. Yes, that's what's gonna happen. It is what it is. But yes,
I just want to stick my toe in the door on one thing, because this is typically always the criticism that I get. I'm also not saying that your complaining is entire, like not you guys, but the general public, the chat, you people listening. I'm also not saying that your complaining is entirely invalid. or that you don't have a right to complain. That's typically what I always get. So nobody can complain. No, that's not what I said.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that your complaints don't have merit. What I'm saying is that your complaints reflect a dynamic on the capital market, in terms of your interpretation of the criticality of that and the impactfulness of that. I would just invite you to consider like the percentage of that complaint, right, in comparison to the rest of the market behavior. And then further, I would say what I'd really want to hear from people is I want to really hear what choices you're making, right? I thought that the super chat was great because that is real. That is a person saying the choice I am making is I may be gaming less, right? I may not be participating in the market. I may find alternative hobbies, right? That's an impactful statement and it means things. What I really want to hear is, hey, the Nintendo Switch at $450 is too expensive. It's corporate greed. It really pisses me off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save twice as much money and go ahead and I know it's more expensive, but I'm going to spend the $900 on the ROG Ally X because I think it's got more legs. It's going to give me access to more content, blah, 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 blah. But I also need to hear, I acknowledge that's not what everyone's going to do, but that's the choice I'm going to make, right?
Yep.
Those are the things that I think are more interesting conversations that tell me a little bit more of the impact and convey to people other options that they would pursue rather than just saying, Game Pass is the greatest value in gaming.
What do you say? And we can wrap this up here because this is just
yes, please.
What I said earlier. But my final point on this is I do still, because whenever a company raises a price, like part of the decision making on that is, well, do we believe we can get away with it? What do our analytics tell us? How much money are people spending on these things? What is the demand level based on the metrics that we check for this stuff? So can we get away with charging this price, and how many sales do we expect at this price, right? I understand that. But is one of the things that they look at consumer sentiment? Meaning like, will they just raise a price even though they could, but it would cause them a PR issue that they'd have to deal with, and maybe they want to stay away from it because of whatever image they're trying to portray to the world, right? So I just really quick, I say this to say, if that is ever the case, meaning they are also considering a PR element of raising their prices, not just demand. And again, they're considering PR because down the line at some point, PR would affect demand. If that is the case, shouldn't we, the people, the content creators, or just the people in the timeline complaining, isn't it a net positive for people to display discontent just so there is at least some kind of check on if we do this, it will cause some level of headache from PR, and then we'll have to factor that in whether how much it is worth us to raise this price. I don't know if I posed that question.
No, I get it. I think that's definitely part of market telemetry. But my standard caveat is I think not necessarily we, but I think writ large, right? That the notion of content creators and people on social media, live streamers especially, as well, think that we wield much more power than we actually do, right? In terms of invoking that influence. But again, I don't think it's like invalid to complain. But what I will say is, I think my belief is that's part of market telemetry, but that doesn't necessarily keep them from still testing the waters and combining that with the market telemetry of how the market actually responds. I think a lot of what has been blown by in the Nintendo conversation is, again, largely because lots of gamers don't remember their gaming history. Let's not forget that in 2011, I think it was, the 3DS dropped on the market at $250. They didn't see the sales that they wanted to see. So in 6 months, they decided they were going to drop the price down and cut it by a third almost to $170. And I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that this is what Nintendo's going to do. NVIDIA, as much as we've talked about corporate greed with application to them, they did a thing at the launch of the 4000s. There were things they didn't see that they wanted to see, and so when they did the half life cycle incremental bump, they changed some things, right? They put out that 4080 Super at a lower MSRP. than they had done the 4080. So companies make changes, right, based on market response. They definitely consider PR. That doesn't necessarily deter them from actively engaging on the capital market and actually seeing whether or not that PR, that social response, is actually commensurate with how the market is going to behave. I know one person in the chat said, I think you're way off on how the general population will react to this. I could be wrong, though. I appreciate that caveat. I would say my point is, in my estimate of how the market is going to respond isn't based on hand-wavy notions of the telemetry I see on social media. It's based on how the actual history of the market behavior has responded, right? And that's part of my problem, is a lot of people are saying, oh, well, this isn't going to work. Oh, this is going to be a failure. I'm like, what are you basing that on? Like, if you show me some data and you walk the dog for me, I'll definitely maybe find it believable and we can have that discussion. But I can't have a discussion with the hand wave of, people are going to respond negatively to it. Or as some people pointed out, well, we've seen decreasing, we've seen decreasing sales, but has it hit the inflection point where that causes a change in behavior? So far to date, what I will contend is, historically, the market has been fine with $10 incremental price bumps, writ large, and they have been okay, minus the U.S. Video game market crash of 1983. They have endured gaming console price increases. What they have not supported, for a great historical example, is they haven't supported 8 or 9 consoles being on the market at one time like we had in the 90s. Right? The market said we're not going to support 3DO, TurboGrafx, Neo Geo, Jaguar 64. Right? We used to have a much more competitive market with much more players. The market said we're not going to support that. We're going to support 3 console manufacturers.
I mean, they barely support 3 though. There's always somebody lagging far behind
Yeah, some of that is self-inflicted. Some of that is market response, right? Nintendo Wii U, I would contend that was self-inflicted, right? That wasn't necessarily the market not supporting it. We can have a discussion about what's going on with Xbox now. But yes, there's always. I mean, historically, the battle really in consoles was always who number one. It's kind of like a Formula One race, right? Number one gets out to a big lead and maintains it, and it's not really a question. And then the battle really was between 2 and 3, right? But up until Sega bowed out. Now that's become different, right, over the last couple of decades. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
All right, so let us get out of here. The only last piece of content. This is not for like a response, but just I just wanted to make sure that this was said. Just because we got to get out of here, but in terms of the market supporting $10 incremental price increases, I think that is historically true, but I think we have to look at the delta of the increases, meaning we just went to 74 or 5 years ago, and now we're going to 80.
But I also told you that was going to happen, Everborn.
Sure.
I also said, because we stuck at 60 for longer than the historical trend has been, right? That we've upticked every 8 to 10 years, and we stuck at 60 for 15 years, that the swing to 80 was going to come much faster because these companies all feel like they need to make up for lost time.
Yeah, but that me, that says, and this is when you see the shoreline pulling back and you notice the tsunamis coming. But who's to say the delta between 80 and 100 is not even shorter?
I think that is as short as GTA 6, but that's a whole different comment.
I think that's the real fear around this. Last thing I'll say is, funny enough, you brought up the 3DS example. I definitely recommend this book, the Reggie Fils-Aimé book. This is what he claims, and obviously is his book, his perspective, so it's gonna favor him. He knew that shit wasn't gonna work. Sorry, I think that's my one.
That's your one.
And
go ahead.
From the beginning, do not do this. And they were like, we spent a lot of money on production of this. We think we see high demand for it. But what they were mistaking was, there is your first year of sales where typically you're going to have your hardcore. And I think this is why you see like Xbox and PlayStation usually do similar numbers in their first year, because you have a certain base, right? But once you exhaust that base and now you're talking to the broader public, that is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of value, right? And
all right, so gentlemen,
anyway, yes, we gotta go.
I must take yes, because my kiddos are going to be about like beating down my door in a minute. So unfortunately, some of the conversations that we were gonna we may have touched on, we'll save that for next week. What am I talking about?
Well, you can get in the Discord.
Yes, jump into Discord if you want to chat with us. Conversations like Marathon. Have you played it in the closed alpha? How do you feel about it? Conversations like Phil Spencer's latest conversation. I know that was going to turn into a whole thing. And then I know I wanted to talk about it, but I hope we can chat about it on the Discord. That is the Oblivion remake and remastered remake.
Why don't we save that discussion until it's actually out?
That's right.
Like the
worst
shadow drop in history
in the world, right? And Lord Cognito's leaks of the DLCs that will be included. Shout out to the ILP. So lots of conversations still to be had. Unfortunately, we're at the end of it for us. But Game Logic, sir, it is always a pleasure when you can just jump on this show with us. I know. I guess I must thank the fam for being on vacay, so you can give us some of your time. We appreciate you, sir. Where can people keep up with the rest of your ongoings on the internet?
You can probably just check me out. Actually, I'll change my plug. You can check me out at the Rounding Off Infinity. That's roundingoffinfinity.blog, I think, where I post most of my written content. So you can check that out. There's a link to a blog called 10 Keyless, and that's where I post a lot of thoughts there. So feel free to stop by. I also am serving official formal notice that based on your comment, which I feel was credible, valid, and justified, that I will now at this point start taking full advantage of my right to the I think what you termed it was an open ticket to join the podcast.
Absolutely, good sir. So, absolutely, okay. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
You are always welcome, and we always appreciate what you bring to the show. So, sir, you are always welcome. That link you had always works. Join us next week, the week after, whenever you feel like it. We always appreciate your takes on things.
I will be less formal about my coordination and scheduling.
Absolutely. Now, before we get out of here, just so you guys know, and I'm going to put the final nail in the coffin here. We do a lot of these conversations in the Discord. One of the conversations was, what is the best 3D Mario game? And by your votes here means, and you guys should know, Mr. John Wolf was expecting that he would take a victory lap today, but he is not taking a victory lap. He contends that was it Galaxy? No, Odyssey or Galaxy that was the best. He contended that Galaxy was the best. Yes, and Galaxy, yes, and by a large margin, you guys are saying no. 64 is the GOAT. It deserves to stay the GOAT, and it will continue to be the GOAT. Hey,
and once again, the chat has not disappointed. You all have
and the realm, as ILP would say, has spoken. Shout out to y'all. Thank you guys so much. But there's lots of kind of conversation like this on our Discord, you know. Freaking ageist over here with Lucius with his ageist take. It's fine.
Venn diagram of people who chose Mario 64 and are older than 37 years old is a perfect circle. I get it.
There you go. Absolutely. But yeah, that's it for us. You will actually catch me later today because I will actually be on the Xbox Era podcast. They asked me to come out there, so I will be on the podcast today. I think it's later on 5:00, something like that. Before then, you'll probably catch me in the Discord, hanging out with the brothers, being very slanderous while building a Smith machine cage in my garage because it's going down this weekend. But that's it, man. Everborn Saga, anywhere else they can find you, anywhere they can keep up with your ongoing stuff.
The same way you find me every week, everbornsaga.com. Oh, let me announce this here since we will be at the Garden State Anime Fest with the Everborn Saga on May 3rd and 4th. And then it was official. We secured our spot at Anime NYC this year. This is in August. So please come check us out if you're in New York. Anime NYC is one of the biggest anime shows in the country. So we got a table there. Very excited about that. Premium corner booth too. I'm doing the booth design stuff now, so it'll be fun. So if you're in the Augusta, New Jersey area on Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th, come check us out at Garden State Anime Fest. And if you're in the tri-state area, come over to Anime NYC in August, and we may be showing up in Miami at
Hey now,
SuperCon. We're talking with the
Hey
sales
now.
people over there, so hopefully we can get in
Okay.
there.
You keep me posted. I'll drive down and come help you if you're in Miami. I'm sure even Mr. Wolf will pull up. We gonna do IRL things then. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Also, not to be outdone, we will be PAX East May 8th till the 11th. I'll be there. I'm sure Mr. Everborn Saga will be joining me on the weekend. We were blessed to be able to jump in as press. So thanks to PAX for allowing us to jump into PAX East as press. We'll be similarly trying to do the same for PAX West. Before we get out of here, I would say shout out to Dr. Dry Rub for all the awesome codes. Shout out to Rave Damos for the South of Midnight code. We appreciate y'all for all the great support that you guys continue to show us. But yeah, I think we're done here, man. We're done, right? That's it. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. See you next week.
Kings Road coming next week or whenever they fix that bug in the store.
All right, man. Stop pimping their wares for that, man. I hope you're getting a check for that.
True. They're not giving me a check. I just like to share things I like. But anyway.
Till next week. Peace.
Thanks for being on it.